What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
6AF. Chapter 90, Konoha's, King of Gotham, killed at white hair. Advertisement. Seeing Tsunade agreeing so eagerly, Jiraiya's heart burst with joy. Very good, Tsunade accepted my invitation, Jiraiya said excitedly in his heart, and a smile unconsciously appeared on the corner of his mouth. Then let's all get together. Tsukumo is coming too. Finally, Fusuke nodded lightly, agreed to Jiraiya's request, and pulled Hitaki Tsukumo along. Some things don't have to be so serious, and it's not always necessary to talk about it on another occasion. Yes, because the sky is flat. Hitaki Tsukumo responded and joined this master-disciple gathering. Hear the sound. On the other hand, Jiraiya's face fell instantly, and his wonderful mood fell to the bottom. Snort. He bared his teeth and glared at Tsukumo next to him, then tilted his head and snorted coldly. Hitaki Tsukumo said helplessly in his heart, a trace of weakness flashed in his eyes. Regarding Jiraiya's endless hatred, Tsukumo was really speechless. In a high-end restaurant. Due to the presence of many high-level officials from Konoha, Minato has been completely booked, the one with the lowest seniority, taking the initiative to pay the bill. As the dishes were served, everyone began to chat while eating. But most of the people only chatted with each other, and no one directly talked about serious matters. It seemed that no one wanted to interrupt the rare gathering atmosphere because of their own presumption. During the banquet, except for Tsukumo, no one seemed to be interested in eating or drinking. Especially Tsunade and Jiraiya. The expressions of the two people were surprisingly similar, and they both looked a little excited and complicated. They just kept raising glasses and pouring wine into their mouths. With their strong bodies as cage-level warriors, the two of them couldn't help but get drunk for a while. Especially Tsunade, whose milky and delicate face was covered with camel red. This made her already charming, even more beautiful at this moment. This also attracted Jiraiya's sideways glances. Jiraiya kept trying to find topics to talk to Tsunade. But every time he spoke warmly, Tsunade's answer was more of the same. Oh, you're absolutely right. Yes. A perfunctory reply like this. But Jiraiya still didn't notice anything was wrong. 12 just kept talking. This made Minato on the side cover his face silently. Anyone who is not blind can tell that Tsunade has little interest in Jiraiya. And at this moment, Tsunade, who was blushing, glanced at Fusuke on the other side from time to time, hesitating to speak. However, her movements were relatively secretive, and could only be noticed by Minato, who was observing carefully. Minato looked at everyone at the table and sighed helplessly in his heart. Even though he is a Hokage, who among the people sitting here is not senior to him. Therefore, even if he knew that the atmosphere was not right, he could not say much. Over time, this made Minato unable to sit still. Minato suddenly remembered the letter that his wife handed him when he returned home yesterday. For a moment, Minato's expression became extremely complicated. Think of what was mentioned in the letter. Even Minato had to admit that the content of the letter was quite correct and he was somewhat powerless to refute it. That result is the best for the village, for him, and for everyone. Minato glanced at Fusuke calmly, a hint of guilt flashing through his heart. Thinking of this, a trace of fatigue flashed in his heart. One's own family knows one's own affairs. He also knew that his time was short. Taking advantage of the limited time, he should do more for the village and his family. Standing on this front now, as a Hokage, he really needs to push the village. So, in the end, Minato decided to speak. Master, it tastes bitter. I have something I want to discuss with you. Minato said with a slight shame. Although he said, discuss, there was a hint of pleading in his eyes. Hearing the sound, Jiraiya, who was chattering incessantly, suddenly stopped, and he and Fang looked at each other. Minato, it doesn't matter if you say so. Fusuke smiled gently and nodded at Minato. Master, I want to relieve myself of the Hokage's responsibilities. Accompany Kushina and Naruto to go out and see the outside world. Minato said apologetically. Since the turmoil in Nine Tails, Minato is still responsible for taking care of the village's affairs. Minato, who was less energetic than before, gradually felt unable to support himself. And Minato also knows that this is okay in the short term. But if this continues for a long time, he, a dying man, will continue to control the Hokage's responsibilities. This is not a harm to Konoha. Since it is destined that he cannot bear this responsibility for a long time, it is better to hand over this responsibility earlier. Let everything take its course during this critical moment. This is responsible for the village and the best result. Hearing the sound, the fierce man and Jiraiya looked at each other. Looking at Minato's guilt-filled eyes and haggard expression, both of them felt a little distressed. Especially Jiraiya, looking at the apprentice who raised him single-handedly, now looks like this haggard. Advertisement. He also turned his eyes and looked at Feng Huan with pleading eyes. Because in the final analysis, the decision on this matter still lies in Fusuke's hands. Seeing the eyes of his apprentice and disciple, Fusuke couldn't help but feel soft in his heart. Go ahead, door. The village has me. In the end, he agreed to Minato's request. Thank you very much, master. Hearing the sound, Minato breathed a sigh of relief. Making such a decision is undoubtedly stressful for him. Master, aldehyde, Tsukumo-sama, Master Tsunade. I'll take my leave first. Kushina and Naruto are still waiting for me at home. Minato suddenly stood up and excused himself to everyone at the table with a relaxed smile. Seeing this, everyone looked at each other, watching the fourth Hokage leave. After Minato left, the atmosphere among the four people at the table became even less tense. Fusuke noticed that the atmosphere was similar, and originally planned to discuss the position of Hokage with Tsukumo and Tsunade. But suddenly, Gudong-dong, Jiraiya suddenly raised the wine glass in his hand and poured it into his mouth. The next second, he stood up suddenly, attracting everyone's attention. As the saying goes, drinking makes people brave. For a moment, Jiraiya felt an unprecedented inexplicable courage surge in his heart. Master, in front of you today, I have said something that I have been holding back for a long time. Now I won't be happy if I don't vomit. Jiraiya's eyes held some kind of fiery emotion, and he spoke loudly to Fusuke on the other side. Seeing this, everyone's eyes instantly changed. He exchanged glances with Tsunade and Tsukumo, and saw the shock in their respective eyes. Go ahead, Jiraiya. Seeing this, Fusuke could only stop his desire to speak and said to Jiraiya with a weird look on his face. Look at Jiraiya in front of you. Fusuke suddenly remembered some experiences from his previous life. A male classmate who drank too much was also drunk like this. He confessed his love to the school beauty in public at a class reunion, and then caused bursts of laughter. Vibrantly honored as the new generation of King of Gotham. Jiraiya nodded. Gudong. Then he picked up the wine bottle in front of him again, filled it up and took a big sip. Whoa. Then, he suddenly turned 90 degrees and looked at Tsunade beside him. Tsunade. Today in front of Master, I have something I have wanted to say to you for a long time. I hope you can give me a chance. I like you. Jiraiya's eyes were blazing, and Jinping shouted loudly in a shouting tone. Hear the sound. Fusuke, Tsunade and Tsukumo were all stunned on the spot. Swish. Seeing Jiraiya's actions, Fusuke's face was expressionless, but he subconsciously tapped his toes on the floor twice. Hatake Tsukumo on the other side also looked embarrassed and clenched the wine glass in his hand with a sad expression. At this time, Tsunade was the first to react. Tsunade still knew a little bit about Jiraiya's feelings for her. But she never expected that Jiraiya would do this in public. After reacting, Tsunade ignored Jiraiya in front of him, but turned his head and glanced at the wind on the other side. Seeing that Fusuke didn't show any strange expression, she breathed a sigh of relief. Tsunade thought quickly in his mind, how to reject Jiraiya without appearing so embarrassed. After some deep thought, point 17. Jiraiya, you're fine. But we are not suitable, you deserve other better girls. Tsunade awkwardly waved his hand to Jiraiya and said, a hint of embarrassment flashed in his amber gem eyes at the right time. After all, she and Jiraiya are also great friends. When this happened, Tsunade finally used the good guy card to give both parties some face and leeway. Hearing Tsunade refuse, like most affectionate species, who can't get enough of love, Jiraiya was not willing to give up. He first turned around and glared at Hatake Tsukumo beside him. HMPH. It's okay, Min. I don't care about the past, I am willing to accept you no matter what. Don't worry, I will protect you from now on. Then, he spoke loudly again, making the situation even more embarrassing instantly. Also, quote, what are you saying? Tsunade frowned slightly, she really didn't understand why Jiraiya said this. Seeing that Tsunade was still obsessed, Jiraiya's eyes flashed with anxiety. At this moment, Tsukumo, who couldn't stand it anymore, gave Jiraiya some advice. Jiraiya, you drank too much. Hearing the sound, Jiraiya's expression changed instantly, and a trace of anger flashed in his eyes. Hatake Tsukumo, shut up. Hatake Tsukumo, Tsunade, I know you like this guy Tsukumo. Advertisement. Wake up, it's impossible for you and him. Kakashi is almost an adult. You are fruitless. Jiraiya shouted anxiously, and at the same time glanced at Hatake Tsukumo next to him hatefully again. Along with these words, Fusuke and Tsukumo's eyes gradually widened, and they looked at Tsunade in disbelief. At this time, Tsunade also noticed. I noticed Fusuke's surprised look. For a moment, Tsunade was extremely anxious. She was afraid that Fusuke would misunderstand this, which also made Tsunade's face begin to grow colder. Jiraiya, I don't care why you misunderstood. Please take back what you just said. Tsunade said to Jiraiya with a cold face, a chill flashed in his beautiful eyes. Everything shows that she is really angry. See, Tsunade still refuses to admit it. Intoxicated by alcohol, Jiraiya, who was completely confused, blurted out the words directly. I clearly saw Yin Mao walking out of your room. And you have been single for so many years, isn't it just for? Snapped. Before Jiraiya finished speaking, with a crisp sound, his body flew out directly. Boom. The next second, Jiraiya's body smashed into the wall. Tsunade raised his hands, shaking with anger. Obviously. Tsunade was so angry that he couldn't stand listening anymore and gave Jiraiya a slap in the face. At this moment, her amber gem eyes also overflowed with a little mist and looked a little red. Tsunade couldn't believe that Jiraiya would make such a disgusting rumor in front of Fusuke. Tsunade didn't dare to look at Fusuke. She didn't dare to imagine the look in Fusuke's eyes. What would his eyes look like? Disappointed, angry, or cold, indifferent? Thinking of this, Tsunade suddenly felt a sense of fear in his heart. She immediately lowered her head, a glimmer of crystal light flashed in the corner of her eyes, and ran away without looking back. After Tsunade left, Fusuke and Tsukumo finally recovered from the shock. The two quickly buckled Jiraiya out of the wall 343. Later, he simply used Yongdun to treat his swollen face like a pig head. Even though I was angry. But fortunately, Tsunade was merciful. Not long after, Jiraiya woke up from a coma. As soon as I woke up, I didn't know whether it was because the alcohol had subsided or because I was beaten awake. Jiraiya also showed a trace of regret in his eyes, knowing that he had made a mistake. So, Jiraiya returned to the table again and drank to soothe his nerves. Gudong, Gudong, after drinking several times of wine. Seeing that Jiraiya seemed to be fine, both Yinjie and Tsukumo's eyes flashed with a hint of helplessness and prosperity. Jiraiya, you've gone too far. Fusuke also scolded Jiraiya sternly. He never believed that something like what Jiraiya said would happen. Based on his understanding of Tsunade and Tsukumo, these two people are completely incomparable. Jiraiya, you really misunderstood. Tsukumo smiled bitterly, a trace of laughter and tears flashed in his eyes. At this moment, he also understood why Jiraiya had been so hostile to him for many years. Fortunately, Shuo Maosheng has a good temper, otherwise it would have been someone else. I'm afraid Jiraiya will be stabbed again. Hearing the sound, Jiraiya's mood became even more depressed. Looking into Hitaki Tsukumo's sincere eyes, Jiraiya finally believed his explanation this time. Woo, I'm sorry, Master, Tsukumo. Jiraiya suddenly cried loudly, his voice full of guilt. What is going on? Seeing this, Fusuke asked angrily. He knew his apprentice's temperament very well and knew that Jiraiya could not fabricate such a thing out of thin air. There may still be some misunderstanding in this. Everything started more than 10 years ago. At that time, the Second Ninja War had just ended. One night I planned to confess to Tsunade. Jiraiya explained loudly while crying. Gudong-dong. When he talked about his sadness, he inevitably picked up the bitter wine in front of him and took another swig. Results. Wow, I saw a suspicious white-haired man come out of Tsunade's room like this. After Jiraiya finished speaking, he beat his chest and cried loudly. Hearing the sound, Hitaki Tsukumo's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. That is, from then on. You mistook that suspicious, white-haired man, for me. Hitaki Tsukumo spoke helplessly, not knowing whether to be angry or laughing. But think about it. Jiraiya's inference is not unreasonable. Although Konoha is big, Shiromori is not big either. And with Tsunade's eyes, how could an ordinary, white-haired man, fall into her eyes? At that time, Konoha's white Fang, who was in the limelight and single-handedly killed two of Sand Shinobi's top puppet masters, Scorpion's parents, naturally became the object of Jiraiya's suspicion. Chapter 91. First Kiss, Tsunade regaining his memory, a grand gift. Advertisement. In addition, Tsukumo was also very handsome in appearance when he was young. Therefore, Jiraiya strengthened his conclusion. So that's it. The innocent Tsukumo has been Jiraiya's imaginary love rival for decades. Woo. Jiraiya cried so hard that he was out of breath and unable to answer Tsukumo's questions. At the same time, Jiraiya's words also aroused Tsukumo's curiosity. Seeing Jiraiya crying like this, of course this cannot be faked. Tsukumo also started to guess. Who was the white-haired man who had an encounter with Tsunade Hime, the flower of the high mountain? More than 10 years ago, by Mao. Suddenly, Hitaki Tsukumo seemed to have thought of something. For a moment, Tsukumo's eyes flashed with shock. Because he suddenly remembered that Fusuke seemed to have had a great time more than 10 years ago. It's just that during this period, Gang Jie lived in seclusion because he was too busy. Therefore, the white hair time is not known to the public. But as Anbu chief, Tsukumo, who often deals with Fusuke, happens to be one of the insiders. After a few days, Fang quickly returned to his normal black hair state. In this case, hiss. At that moment, Tsukumo took a breath of air. He turned to look at Uchiha Fusuke aside in shock. He happened to find Fusuke looking at him with an expression on his face. Tsukumo. Fusuke. Shuo Mao smiled and immediately lowered his head and pretended to be stupid. Fusuke gave Tsukumo a deep look. Although he didn't say a word, the meaning in his eyes still made Tsukumo shudder. So Fusuke-sama has this kind of relationship with Tsunade Hime. They are masters and apprentices. Although Tsukumo's heart was filled with turmoil, he didn't dare to show it on his face. Woo, if you want me to know who that white hair is, I must. Jiraiya broke down and cried, cursing at the same time. But before he could curse, Tsukumo on the side immediately reacted and covered Jiraiya's mouth. Jiraiya, you drank too much. At that moment, Tsukumo covered Jiraiya's mouth and looked at Fusuke beside him without any trace. When he saw Fusuke's somewhat darkened complexion, Sui Shin was more certain of his guess. For a moment, Tsukumo felt that, your circle is really chaotic, and, this water is really deep, and he did not dare to continue to interfere. Tsukumo, please send Jiraiya back. He drank too much. Fusuke spoke to Hitaki Tsukumo thoughtfully, and in the second half of the sentence, he deliberately emphasized his tone. Yes. At that moment, Tsukumo immediately understood what Fusuke meant and responded with a calm voice. Seeing this, Fusuke nodded with satisfaction and left the place. After Fusuke left, Tsukumo breathed a sigh of relief and released his hand covering Jiraiya. Jiraiya, who had been suffocated for a long time, immediately became furious and asked Tsukumo drunkenly in front of him. What are you doing, Tsukumo? You guy, why don't you let me call that white hair? Okay, kid, is it you, isn't it you? Jiraiya looked at Hitaki Tsukumo in front of him suspiciously, and the little trust he had just established seemed to be in danger of collapsing again. Hitaki Tsukumo. FK me. At that moment, Tsukumo couldn't bear it anymore, and two extremely obvious hash appeared on his forehead. Boom. He aimed at the back of Jiraiya's neck and stabbed it with one hand. The world immediately went silent. Call. Tsukumo breathed a sigh of relief, turned around and left with Jiraiya on his shoulders. This way, Fusuke relied on his own insight to find traces of Tsunade on a rooftop. Tsunade was standing on the edge of the rooftop, the sun shining on her body, making her already dazzling blonde hair even more dazzling. A ray of breeze blew by, and Tsunade's long golden hair floated in the wind, revealing her perfect side eyes. Fusuke slowly approached Tsunade, with a bit of worry and confusion on his face. He also didn't expect that there would be a witness, night person, called Jiraiya in that incident. Because of this incident, Jiraiya has been misunderstood for so many years. When Fusuke was thinking about how to explain one or two, suddenly, Tsunade on the rooftop turned around sharply. At this moment, Fusuke saw clearly. Two lines of clear tears fell down the corners of Tsunade's eyes, and her dazzling amber gemstone eyes were filled with moisture at this moment. Tsunade bit her sexy red lips slightly and stared at Fusuke's worried eyes with blurred vision. The scene at this moment seemed to overlap with that of many years ago again. Master, I remembered. Advertisement. Tsunade whimpered with a trembling voice. The originally lost memories were suddenly released in my mind. Uchiha Madara suddenly appeared, she was attacked and kidnapped, a shocking and terrifying confrontation, and Uchiha Fusuke turned gray overnight. At this moment, Fusuke's expression froze. His worst fear happened. As time goes by, and Tsunade's strength grows, the effectiveness of the memory seal that Fusuke casually cast back then continued to decline. Through the reminder of the silly boy Jiraiya, Tsunade actually broke free from the illusion he cast back then and regained his memory. At this moment, Tsunade, who couldn't breathe due to the pain in his heart, couldn't bear it anymore. She desperately threw herself at Fusuke and hugged his body, as if she was holding some unique treasure. Woo! Tsunade burst into tears, tears falling down her cheeks like broken pearls. She gently stroked Fang's short black hair, which was in sharp contrast to the deathly paleness in her memory. She couldn't imagine how much Fusuke paid to save her back then. Looking at Tsunade's pretty face, Fang couldn't help but feel a little pain in his heart. Quote. He gently hugged Tsunade's trembling body and whispered to comfort the little apprentice in his arms. Suddenly, Tsunade, who kept sobbing, suddenly raised his head, stood on tiptoes and held Fusuke's face. Then, she pressed her soft red lips hard on the corners of Fusuke's lips. Fusuke's eyes widened and his body suddenly became stiff. The only thing in his eyes at this moment was Tsunade's gem-like eyes full of cherishment and desire. Tsunade kissed Fusuke carefully, as gently as if he were treating a precious and fragile object. As if she was afraid that the next second, she would lose Fusuke forever. It seemed that he saw the shock in Fusuke's eyes gradually fading away and was about to take action. After successful, Tsunade immediately chose to stop as soon as he was ready, gently lowered his toes. Xiao Gang, what are you doing? At this time, Fusuke was still in shock, and he asked Tsunade angrily. Who knows? Facing Fusuke's shock and anger, Tsunade only had a flash of greed and fear on his face. After recovering memory, she understood so many things in an instant. Recalling the tearing pain in my heart, Tsunade understands that it is better to cherish the present than to suffer from loss. Rather than suffering an unclear loss, it is better to boldly express your feelings. At this moment, she did what she had taught Shizune before. If you like it, say it boldly. Master, please don't leave me. Tsunade stared at Fusuke and spoke. She curled up and felt Fusuke's temperature with all her strength. She looked directly at Fusuke without escaping. The pure nostalgia and love in his eyes were unabashedly displayed in front of Fusuke. Seeing this, Fusuke's heart beat twice suddenly, and suddenly he remembered his instructions before his death. But soon, the restriction of master-disciple status and the belated rationality still awakened him. Xiao Gang, you are drunk. Fusuke looked at Tsunade's red cheeks and said in a deep tone. Looking at the silence in Fusuke's eyes, Tsunade felt a sense of loss in his heart. But soon, she turned to smile. Master, that was my first kiss just now. And, I love you. She said with a smile, her smile was as bright as the sun. But it stabbed Fusuke in both eyes. After finishing speaking, Tsunade did not wait for Fengji's answer. Master, I will not be a Hokage. Go back and find Sister Ayako. She turned around and jumped down to the rooftop, leaving only a light word of relief. At this moment, she really looked as free as the wind. Until Tsunade left completely, Fusuke covered his beating heart, and his eyes gradually returned from daze to calmness. He touched the corners of his lips somewhat complicatedly. There is no doubt that Tsunade's straight shot just now made a crack in the cement used to seal Fengji's heart. Fusuke knows that this is going on. Sooner or later he will lose his virginity and make a mistake. It's better to end this as soon as possible. Then go back and live in seclusion. Fusuke recalled his original intention again and kept sighing in his heart. After this incident, at least Fang Jie has determined one thing. All of this is indeed related to Ayako. For a moment, Fusuke could only rub his tingling temples, preparing to leave to find Ayako to end everything. Third Hokage house. Renhua wore a pure white dress and sat in front of the mirror, letting Ayako dress her up. Ayako slightly twisted Renhua's white hair, which was as crystal clear as ice and snow, into a bridal-like bun. Paired with Leon's pure white dress, it's as if she is really a bride. Looking at the beautiful face in the mirror, even Ayako couldn't help but feel a flash of admiration. Advertisement. Among the members of Fusuke's harem, beauty is discussed. I'm afraid. Because this is the purest and flawless beauty. Nice. Lotus flower. He tilted his head slightly and said indifferently to Ayako beside him. But I don't know why. At this moment, Ayako actually read Leon's thoughts from her expressionless face. She is worried. Thinking of this, Ayako's heart became a little complicated. Yes, which girl would remain indifferent when faced with all this? Nice. In the end, Ayako gently gave a positive answer. Hearing the sound, Leonwa nodded silently, bit her lip and said. ... Quote. Hearing this, Ayako just shook her head slightly. No need to thank me, everyone just gets what they need. After all, you have to do it all by yourself. It's just that this time I'm afraid it won't end so easily. There was a rare flash of solemnity on Ayako's charming face, but she soon returned to her natural state again. Finished. She placed 2 transparent bottles in front of Leonwa. Leonwa stared blankly at the 2 transparent glass bottles in front of her, and a trace of curiosity flashed in Gujing Wubo's eyes. As if she was surprised, could the contents in this bottle really be as magical as Ayako described? After putting down the glass bottle, Ayako turned around quietly. But she didn't choose to leave the room, but chose to open the closet next to it. After opening the closet, something amazing happened. There were no clothes in this empty wardrobe, only a young girl sitting in it. The girl is none other than Kurenai Yuhi, who came to be a guest yesterday. At this moment, the girl was wearing a bunny girl outfit with sparse fabrics, looking very seductive. And this outfit was put on by Ayako herself. Looking at the girl sitting here blankly, the big windmill in the center of Ayako's eyes turned slightly. Obviously, Yuhi Hong has fallen deeply into Ayako's illusion at this moment. With Mangekyo's illusion ability, Yuhi Hong obviously does not have the ability to actively break away from the illusion. I hope that he will like my gift by then. Ayako said secretly in her heart, a trace of confusion and paranoia flashed through her pair of heart-shaped windmills. After a while, a strange-looking Uchiha Fusuke appears in front of the Third Hokage house gate. This is my home, how come I don't know? Looking at this luxurious mansion, this person's heart was filled with the desire to complain. Not long ago, Fusuke masterfully activated Flying Thunder God and returned to his home in the tribe land. But as soon as he showed up, he realized that the mansion in the clan area seemed to have been robbed, and it was already empty. After being surprised, the 4 of them remembered what Ayako said last time. After being impressed by Ayako's terrifying efficiency, Fusuke could only ask the few remaining clan members in the clan. Only then did I learn the current address of my home. Looking at the mansion in front of him, a strange look flashed in Gangji's eyes. Forget it, just go with Ayako. At the moment, Fusuke, who didn't care at all, just shook his head silently. Little did he know that a grand surprise was waiting for him in this mansion. Inside the mansion, Ayako sat quietly in the living room, playing with a silver scale in her hand. When Fusuke entered the room, he saw the peaceful scene of this time. Welcome home, Fusuke ni. Seeing Fusuke's arrival, Ayako smiled slightly, stood up and greeted Fusuke. Her movements were as gentle as a wife waiting for her husband to return at home. Fusuke ni, do you want to eat? Ayako tilted her head slightly and asked thoughtfully. Hearing the sound, the memory of being drugged before came to mind again, and the 4 of them immediately shook their heads in alarm. A saint will never fall twice with the same skill. This time, he vowed to know everything from Ayako's mouth. Therefore, this selection forcibly ignores Ayako's tenderness. He walked in front of Ayako, looked directly into Ayako's eyes and asked. What are you hiding from me? Fusuke asked Ayako in a very solemn tone. Looking at Fusuke's serious eyes, Ayako's gentle expression did not change. Sit down and talk, Fusuke ni. She just slowly retreated to the table and gestured towards the other side of the table. Fusuke did not hesitate and chose to sit directly on the opposite side of Ayako. Say it. Fusuke tried to sound tougher and urged again coldly. But in the face of Fusuke's urging, Ayako moved the scale in her hand again. Now, the scale in front of Ayako was obviously tilted. At one end of the scale hangs the heaviest weight. Due to the existence of this weight, the other end of the scale is tilted high. Chapter 92, Reverse Reasoning. Anti-reverse. Fusuke who casts penetration. Advertisement. Brother Fusuke, in fact, sometimes people's choices are like scales. As Ayako spoke, she picked up the smallest weight and placed it on the other end of the scale. But even if she puts this weight on it, the tilt of the scale, which has obviously unequal weight, remains unchanged. What do you want to say in the end? Fusuke asked again, frowning. I meant to say, the reason why some choices cannot be pried is just because the weight of the weights is not enough. Ayako just smiled sweetly and stared at the scale in front of her with burning eyes. As Ayako continues to add weights one by one. Finally, as the number of weights increases. Pap. The situation at both ends of the scale reversed instantly. As the two ends of the scale reversed, a charming smile flashed across Ayako's lips. Calculating the time, it should be almost done. She said to Fusuke thoughtfully. At that moment, Fusuke's heart trembled violently, as if he had a premonition that something bad was about to happen. Fusuke brother, let's go upstairs and have a look. There might be a surprise. Ayako said coquettishly, a hint of confusion and danger flashed in her charming eyes. Hearing the sound, Fusuke seemed to think of something, and he quickly moved towards the doctor on the second floor of the mansion. Fusuke quickly walked up the stairs of the mansion, walked through the corridor, and opened the door at the end of the corridor. This is an extremely spacious bedroom. The most eye-catching thing about this bedroom is the huge bed. On this large bed, it is conservatively estimated that at least 10 people can sleep. Hyuga, who is dressed in a white dress and looks like a mountain snow lotus, is lying on the bed with her eyes closed. On Lianhua's pretty face, which is as delicate as crystal, a bright red bloodline overflowing from the corner of her mouth is extremely eye-catching. Fusuke's pupils shrank violently. When he blinked again, an empty glass bottle was lying crookedly next to Lianhua's pillow. Naturally, the four of them are very familiar with this empty bottle. After all, that day, Ayako used this object to successfully reverse his prediction. The scene before me could only mean one thing. That is, Lianhua took poison. Fusuke was instantly angry. By now, nothing needs explanation. Whether Lianhua volunteered or Ayako tricked Lianhua into taking poison. The thing is done. Uchiha Ayako must be the culprit. Z. Fusuke gritted his teeth and whispered angrily, his eyes almost bursting with fire. 1818. At this moment, Fusuke let out a charming chuckle from behind. 397. When he turned around again, he saw Ayako arriving behind him at some point. You disappoint me so much. Fusuke gave Ayako a cold look in front of him, and the warmth in his eyes gradually became colder. Seeing Fusuke's emotionless eyes, Ayako's heart ached violently. But even so, Ayako still stared at Fusuke in front of her dreamily. Because she knew that after today, Fusuke would no longer be able to leave her and escape to a place where she could not see him and live in seclusion. She reached out slightly to touch the side of Fusuke's face. Snapped. But Fusuke opened her hand forcefully with a cold face. Because Fusuke was too angry and too powerful, Ayako's delicate body staggered a little under the strong blow. She gently stroked her stinging little hand, a hint of pain flashed across her face, and her little hand, as soft and delicate as white jade, was also a little red from the beating. If it were in the past, Fang would not be willing to see his childhood sweetheart sister Ayako showing such an expression. But now, Fusuke was so angry that his heart felt like stone when he saw Ayako's expression. Ignoring Ayako on the side, Fusuke quickly came to Renhua and investigated Renhua's condition. The characteristics of this strange poison are as strong and treacherous as ever. Under the erosion of toxins, Lianhua was in extremely bad condition at the moment. Feeling Fusuke's arrival, Lianhua slowly opened her eyes. Although the pure eyes in the glass were still intact, Fusuke could clearly see the complex emotions in them. Guilt, nostalgia, anxiety. Although Lianhua didn't say much, Fang had already read a lot of information just by looking at her eyes. This also seemed to admit from the side that everything was voluntary on her part. Hearing the sound, he exhaled lightly. His angry eyes only became more intense. I like Fusuke. Like very much. Seeing this, the anxiety in Lianhua's eyes became more and more obvious, and she opened her mouth to explain in a murmur. As soon as she finished speaking, there was a tingling sensation on her lips. Hearing the sound, Fusuke lowered his head bitterly, and took a bite on Lianhua's pink lips as if venting his anger. Quote. Lianhua's eyes widened, before she could feel it carefully. Fusuke stood up suddenly and walked to the side. On the table, there is an unopened transparent glass vial. Obviously, advertisement. This was something the two girls had prepared for him early in the morning. Fusuke didn't hesitate, just took off the cap of the bottle and drank it in one gulp. Bcaj. A familiar feeling flowed through Fusuke's body again. Quote. Fusuke smacked his lips slightly. Don't tell me, this thing tastes a bit like Red Bull. At this time, a strange idea suddenly came to his mind. But this could not conceal Fang Ji's inner anger. He walked up to Ayako with a cold face and looked at Ayako coldly. Obviously, once raw, twice cooked. He came to Ayako again to add buff. Otherwise, it would still be difficult for Fusuke to overcome the obstacles in his heart. Seeing this, a flash of understanding flashed in Ayako's eyes, and the heart-shaped windmills in her eyes began to rotate slightly. She smiled slightly again and whispered softly, I can't defend myself because I'm not tall. After all, if Fusuke resists, Fusuke's fairy eyes, level Sharingan's pupil resistance will be enough. Ayako's Mangekyo ability will most likely be disabled directly. Fusuke didn't move, just stared at Ayako's eyes quietly and relaxed. The heart-shaped windmills in Ayako's eyes began to spin rapidly. An invisible force began to act on Fang Jie. Only this time, a strange feeling emerged in my heart. Wrong. Fusuke suddenly realized that his feelings this time were obviously different from the last time. But due to his non-resistance, Ayako's Mangekyo ability is now in effect. The next second, Fusuke's cold and emotionless face suddenly changed. A strange arc suddenly appeared at the corner of his mouth, making Fang Ji's originally elegant and handsome face become full of evil and evil. At the same time, possessiveness and lust began to surface little by little in Fusuke's scarlet eyes. In an instant, the temperament of Fang Jie instantly changed from the ethereal and relegated immortal to the electric pressure of trying to control everything in the world of mortals. A dangerous yet charming villain aura emerges from Fusuke. He smiled evilly and slowly approached Ayako, pulled Ayako into his arms and hugged her tightly. Shao Ayako, do you know how much you are worth? This time, I'm afraid you will be miserable, miserable. He looked directly at Ayako's charming cheek, his face full of domineering meaning. Feeling Fusuke's greedy iron arms that seemed to be rubbing her into his body, Ayako's charming face was filled with obsession and excitement. Ayako didn't care about Fusuke's domineering eyes full of danger and lust. She just took this opportunity to ask questions that had been buried in her heart for many years. I don't care. For Brother Fang, I can give everything. Body, soul, and dignity are all for you. Fusuke, can you tell me, do you love me? Ayako stared closely into Fusuke's eyes, her charming eyes filled with unprecedented nervousness. This time, she has staked everything. For, just the answer from Fusuke's mouth. And this answer is something that Fusuke in a normal state would never give her. Boring. Why would you ask such a question? Of course I. Hearing this, Fusuke just sneered and was about to answer. At this moment, his expression suddenly stiffened, and he seemed to be struggling. Obviously, Ayako's question undoubtedly touches the deepest hidden things in Fusuke's heart. Seeing this, Ayako gritted her teeth and desperately activated the Mangekyo ability in her right eye. Whoa! A line of bloody tears flowed from the corners of her charming eyes. At the same time, after Ayako strengthened her pupil power, Fusuke's expression gradually returned to the domineering look before. He slowly spit out a word from the corner of his mouth. At this moment, just this word, Ayako's delicate body instantly softened, and her tense expression instantly relaxed. A line of clear tears slowly slipped from the corners of Ayako's eyes. Ayako, who was crying with joy, kept wiping the corners of her eyes. Seeing Ayako's expression of genuine affection, Fang Jie just licked the corner of his mouth thirstily. Shao Ayako, brother will play with you later. He said evilly and wiped away the tears from the corners of Ayako's eyes. Then, Fang Jie turned around and looked at Lian Hua, who was as pure and flawless as a bride on the other side. At that moment, a trace of fiery possessiveness flashed in his eyes. Little Lotus, from today on, you are my woman. Afterwards, Fusuke went directly to the big bed, which was big enough for 10 people, and spoke domineeringly. I'm Fusuke's. It's all Fusuke's. Lian Hua nodded in response, a trace of red cloud flew up on her expressionless pretty face, and a trace of confusion flashed in her pure glass eyes. Renka's cute and confused expression on her blushing face ignited Fusuke's heart. Ever since, in an almost domineering manner, Fusuke used a bloodline limit that had been lost to the ninja world for many years. Its name is Through Escape. The Other Side. Advertisement. Ayako wiped away the tears of joy from the corner of her eyes and rubbed her right eye, which was a little swollen and painful. As she has been hiding. The trump card. This moment finally played the most crucial role. Ayako's left eye, Mangekyo, has the ability called 7 emotions. The effect is that it can amplify a certain emotion several times or even dozens of times. The specific effect is determined by the recipient's resistance to the Mangekyo eye technique. This includes joy, anger, sadness, etc. But the effect of this ability is only limited to release. For example, use this pupil technique. Ayako can make a person who picks up $10 feel as happy as if he has won 5 million. But it was impossible for him to make an orphan whose parents had just died feel happy out of thin air. The Mangekyo ability of Ayako's right eye is called 6 desires. 0. The effect is to release people's desires, which is the true self. This is similar to the effect of alcohol. A normal person is submissive on weekdays, but when drunk he will show his teeth and claws. It's not that he has changed into a different person, it's just that alcohol has numbed his moral sense and released his inner self. At this moment, Ayako used the pupil technique of her left and right eyes to cooperate. The desire Fusuke had been suppressing was finally released. After some time, after Fusuke detoxified Renhua, he turned to look at Ayako, who was already ready. To a person, inner desires are like accumulated firewood. It's just there and it won't disappear, even though you can't feel his presence most of the time. But once the pair of firewood is ignited, the flame can only be extinguished until the firewood is completely burned out. Fusuke's original desire comes from the accumulation of bit by bit over decades. Ayako knew that if Fusuke didn't burn out the firewood in his heart today, Fang would not be able to return to his normal state. Ever since Fusuke brother, Ayako looked at Fusuke pitifully. Then, the bloodline penetration, which has been lost for many years in the ninja world, was once again used by Fusuke. After a while, Ayako could only open the closet door on one side. A small gift that had been hidden among them was revealed. Seeing this situation, Fusuke was shocked at first. Continue to improve bloodline's proficiency. I do not know how long it has been. Wait until Fusuke opens his eyes again. Quote. He couldn't help but gasp. Memories from the past came to mind again. It seemed that Fusuke was awakening. The three of them also rubbed their hazy eyes to wake up. Ayako. Brother. Leonwa. Master. Yuri Hong. Dad. Fusuke. 3 days later. In the Hokage's office. Suck it. Fusuke sat behind his desk, picked up the teacup in front of him and took a sip. He glanced at this extremely familiar office, a trace of despair flashed in his eyes. Recall everything that happened not long ago. Fusuke still felt slightly complicated inside. For the past 3 days, Fusuke's eyes would inevitably twitch when he recalled everything. No doubt, in the end he was caught. It fell into the big net, carefully compiled by Ayako. Almost all the people around him are nodes on the online. The purpose of Ayako's web is to keep Fusuke. As Ayako said, there are no scales in the world that cannot be manipulated, and there are no decisions that cannot be changed. The reason why it cannot be changed is simply because the weight of the weight is not enough. What Ayako did, it is on this scale that weights are constantly added. The first weight Ayako throws is herself. It's just the weight of this weight that obviously can't tip the scales in Fusuke's heart. Immediately afterwards, the next weight thrown by Ayako is named Uchiha. The fighting faction within the Uchiha tribe has been extremely stubborn for many years. These die-hards have inflated ambitions and reckless pride. This is like a cancer attached to the Uchiha community. There is only one way to cure it. That is, the long-term pain is not as good as the short-term pain, so just cut it off directly. And all this is obviously not something that Ayako alone can do. This is not a gap in intelligence, but a lack of hard power. Chapter 93, Ayako. I only feel sorry for my brother, and I wish you all happiness. Advertisement. Originally, according to the normal trajectory, Uchiha Kageme's rebellion will probably happen a few years later, which is roughly in time for the Night of Genocide. Fusuke naturally cannot sit idly by and ignore Uchiha's rebellion. Originally, Ayako wanted to use this opportunity to force Oka to return to the village. Unexpectedly, Nine Tails was in turmoil and disrupted Ayako's arrangement. So while Fusuke is in the village, Ayako plans to solve the problem once and for all. At the beginning of this rebellion, Shui had always been Ayako's person. In fact, Ayako has always been well aware of the situation of the rebellion. It was also Ayako who instructed Shisui to hand Fusuke the knife to kill Uchiha Kagami and Uchiha Fugaku at the critical moment. Certainly, the appearance of Sarutobi Hiruzen and Shimura Danzo was something Ayako didn't expect. So much so that things got out of control, triggering the appearance of second Hokage Senju Tobirama. The appearance of Tobirama is undoubtedly beneficial to Ayako from the results. This can be said to be an unexpected surprise, adding an extra weight to Ayako's hand. Wait until the Uchiha rebellion subsides. The third weight thrown by Ayako is the responsibility of the village. Thanks to her many connections, no one in Konoha was willing to serve as Hokage. And Minato's time is running out. For the sake of the village, Fusuke is faced with a situation where he must take charge. At last, Ayako was furious. Press the Hyuga Lotus, Yuhi read and other weights together. Finally, Inko began to lean. Everything added up, and finally the woman who has always occupied a special place in Fusuke's heart finally came to the fore. If asked, in order to keep Fusuke, Ayako did not hesitate to share Fusuke with another woman. Is it worth it? Ayako's answer is certainly worth it. She would rather occupy only a small place in Fusuke's heart, to always be by Fusuke's side. I don't want Fusuke to stay away and lose the wind. To this end, Ayako planned carefully. Everything finally came true. Tuk tuk. Just then, there was a knock on the door of Hokage's office. The next second, two magnificent figures opened the door and appeared in the house. Husband. Ayako and Renka hugged Fusuke's shoulders, one on the left and the other on the right. One voice is soft and charming, the other one is clear and sweet. On the left is Ayako with a happy face and firm eyes. On the right, there was Lien Hua, whose pretty face showed no signs of movement, just silently nuzzling him with her little face, as cute as a kitten. Even Fusuke is stone-hearted. How could it be possible to remain calm about everything? Not to mention, after establishing a more intimate relationship, Feng could no longer deceive himself. Deep down in his heart, he really likes Ayako and Renhua. If both girls don't mind, why should he care too much? If we say, Tsunade's sincere confession. He just used a hammer to create a crack in the cement sealing Fusuke's heart. So Ayako's set of operations. It was the battering ram that smashed into the concrete that sealed Fusuke's heart. Feng just chose to silently accept the two girls' affectionate addresses and actions. Things have happened. So what can he do? He is also desperate. He really couldn't hate Ayako. Judging from the results. No matter what, he got the advantage and behaved well. In order to help him open a harem, Ayako did everything she could. Who wouldn't like a good sister who only thinks about him, and has many smooth little combos? By now, Fusuke can only take the responsibility he deserves. Think of this. Fusuke gave up and pinched Leonwa Q's fair and tender face. Then he turned around and pecked Ayako's delicate lips. After doing all this, Fusuke breathed a sigh of relief. I feel much more comfortable. Oops, why are you still cowering at the door? Come in quickly. Suddenly, Ayako waved towards the door and said with a smile. There was still no movement at the door. Ayako then walked out of the door and pushed and pulled the shivering girl into the room. Fang, 4 adults. Yuhi Kurenai stammered a greeting to Fang. The sunset is red, and at this moment, the whole person is living up to his name. She was extremely shy, and her skin all over her body was tomato-colored, and steam was still coming out of her head. Because what happened before has exceeded the limit of a girl. Yuhi Kurenai still has a hard time facing Fusuke for a while. Ayako and Renka looked at each other. The two girls, one on the left and one on the right, lifted up Yuhi Kurenai and threw the girl into Fusuke's arms. Advertisement. Well, Yuhi Hong was too shy to raise her head, so she could only bury her head in Fang Ji's arms. Fusuke just rubbed Yuhi Kurenai's little head helplessly. Some things can only be accepted slowly with time. Not only for Yuhi Hong, but also for Fang Jie. What else could Fusuke say? After all, if you have too many debts, you won't have to worry about them, and if you have too many lice, you won't have to bite them. I'm afraid that's the case. The Minato family is leaving. Ayako suddenly started talking about business. So fast. It's time to send it off. Fusuke nodded slowly, as he, the master, should indeed come forward to deal with the situation. Along the way, the 4 Fusukes walked on the street, forming an extremely beautiful scenery. Looking around, on the streets of Konoha, banners such as, warmly welcome the return of the 3rd generation to the village, and, to celebrate the return of the 3rd generation to the village, our store offers half price, can be seen everywhere. Seeing this, Fusuke didn't know whether he should be happy or troubled. He could only silently walk towards the gate of Konoha under the adoring eyes of the people of Konoha village. Konoha, Yuhi family residence. So red, so red. Come out faster. The handsome guy who bullied your daughter, that's not it. I found that scumbag. A middle-aged aunt rushed into Yuhi's house and said to a middle-aged man with a somewhat old-fashioned face. Hearing the sound, a chill flashed through Shiri Junhong's eyes in the room. A****, I have to chop this B******* D up. Yuhi Hong took out the knife directly from the house and yelled through gritted teeth. Since the last time Fusuke and Yuhi Kurenai were walking together on the street, they were met by an aunt who was familiar with the Yuhi family. This good-hearted aunt informed the news to Yuhi Kurenai's father, Konoha Jonin, Yuhi Kurenai. Originally, Yuhi Junhong only thought that her daughter was in love and didn't take it seriously. But who knows, it didn't take long for the rumors to become more and more outrageous. Until yesterday, there were even rumors about Yuhi Hong and 2 other girls, 3 girls serving 1 husband. This makes Yuhi Mahong feel crazy. But seeing the rumors getting worse, the melon-eating moms say they have noses and eyes. I have to believe that Yuri is really red. Now, I heard that the culprit has finally been found. After Yuhi Junhong asked her aunt about the location where the scumbag appeared, she drew her knife and rushed to the doctor. Konoha village, at the gate. The Minato family packed up and said goodbye to everyone who came to see them off. But for some reason, Jiraiya was absent from his beloved disciple's farewell ceremony. Finally, after Minato said goodbye to everyone, the last, big guest, finally arrived. Master Ayako, Master Leonwa. Minato greeted Fusuke, Ayako and Renge with a gentle expression. Seeing that Ayako and Renka finally got the results they wanted, Minato's eyes flashed with blessing. 23. A small head emerged from behind Fang Jie. Looking at the shy girl, Minato's face suddenly froze. Because there is a very eye-catching black diamond mark on the girl's forehead. This comes from the eternal seal, planted by Fang Jie himself for Yuri Hong, which undoubtedly hints at the current relationship between the girl and Fang Jie. Grandma Hong. In the end, Minato said the title stiffly. Pooch. At that moment, Ayako not only laughed out loud. Even Leonwa's mouth Kakuzu couldn't help but make a touching arc. Hearing the sound, Yuhi Hong's face instantly turned red and she shrank behind Fusuke again. Quote. Seeing this, he just smiled awkwardly at Minato. Konoha ninja. Master, please take care of yourself. At this time, it was Kushina who took the initiative to speak out and ease the awkward atmosphere. Fusuke nodded gently towards Kushina. Suddenly, he discovered that Kushina's fox fur scarf seemed a bit familiar. After taking a closer look, I realized that this was not the pet fox he had, free range, in Konoha. As if aware of Fusuke's gaze, Nine Tails, which was wrapped around Kushina's neck, suddenly raised its head, and an awkward yet polite smile appeared on the fox's face. Seeing this, Fusuke narrowed his eyes. Master. I don't know what's going on with this guy. He's been staying at my house lately. Quote. Kushina said slightly hesitantly, with an embarrassed expression on his face. After getting along for a period of time, Kushina found that Nine Tails was not that difficult to get along with. Perhaps it was the influence of many years of Jinchuriki career, but she felt that Nine Tails was somewhat friendly. One just took a deep look at the 9 tails on Kushina's neck. Looking at 9 tails' twinkling eyes, Fusuke knew that this cunning fox might have seen something. After all, Minato's son Naruto is the reincarnation of Ashura. Go. Unexpectedly, Fusuke just waved his hand generously. After all, he had no interest in confiscating Naruto's plugins. Hearing the sound, 9 tails also breathed a sigh of relief, crossed his body again, and played the role of scarf. Minato didn't say much about this advertisement. He knew Fusuke had a point in his heart. Then, Minato waved his hand vigorously to Fusuke, and embarked on the journey with his wife, son and a scarf. Please give me flowers. After watching Minato walk away, Fusuke whispered to the three women beside him. Let's go back too. Hearing the sound, Ayako and Renka skillfully hanged on Fusuke's body. Only one side. Yuhi Hong's face turned red with embarrassment and she was a little at a loss. She could only grab the corner of Fusuke's clothes and follow Fusuke carefully. The four of them had just returned to the village. Then they saw a middle-aged ninja holding a knife and walking towards a few people with a murderous look on his face. Seeing this, Ayako and Leon raised their eyebrows at the same time, a strange look flashed in their eyes. What's going on here? Is it still possible to see someone dare to assassinate Hokage on the street in Konoha? When Yuhi Hong saw this angry man, her face turned pale and she suddenly seemed a little at a loss. Likewise, Fusuke also had a look of embarrassment on his face. Because the middle-aged man walking in front of him is Yuhi Hong's biological father, Yuhi Junhong. Feng Jie still has an impression of the ninja Yuhi Mahong. Because Yuhi Junhong can be regarded as his old subordinate. After discovering Yuhi Kurenai's figure, Yuhi Junhong comes straight to Yuhi Hong. Third generation Sama. When she noticed Fusuke next to Yuhi Kurenai first greeted Fusuke respectfully. Then, he angrily walked up to Yuhi Hong and asked the girl loudly. Hong, where is that scumbag pretty boy? You tell me, I must chop him to death. Yuhi Junhong had an angry face, and a cold light flashed on the shiny machete in her hand. Pooch. Hearing Yuhi's angry voice, Ayako couldn't help covering her mouth and snickering. Even Leon was indifferent. Glazed eyes flashed with a hint of joy at this moment, as if she had seen something interesting. Hearing her father's question, Yuhi Hong looked embarrassed and subconsciously hid behind Fusuke. At this time, Risen Hong also noticed the little monster holding the corner of her daughter's clothes. His eyes gradually turned from angry to sober. He turned around and looked at Renhua with a cold face, Ayako with a sweet smile, and Fusuke's extremely handsome face. Scumbag, handsome, three women serving one husband. For a time, all the messages she heard in the past came to Yuhi Junhong's heart. Hiss. At that moment, Risen Hong took a breath of air. Danglang. Then, Yuri Junhong lost her grip and dropped the shiny steel knife in her hand to the ground. Whoa. His reaction was quick, and with lightning speed, he kicked the steel knife away from his feet. Hee. This is for shaving. Then, Yuhijin Kurenai smiled awkwardly, scratched the back of her head and explained to Fusuke in front of her. Hearing the sound, Fusuke's eyes also flashed with embarrassment. So this is all. It seems like your beard is usually quite lush. Fusuke scratched his head in embarrassment and walked down the donkey path. Giggle. Listening to the conversation between Fusuke and Yuhi Mako, Ayako was laughing so hard. Yuhi Jonin, I thought I heard you just now, what are you going to do? At the moment, Ayako, who was watching the fun and not taking it too seriously, started joking directly, her charming eyes full of teasing. Hearing the sound, Fusuke gave Ayako a hard look. But unexpectedly, Ayako was not afraid at all, but instead glanced at him charmingly. Her eyes seemed to say, teach me a lesson if you have the ability. This goblin. Fusuke gritted his teeth secretly in his heart, and an unknown fire emerged in his heart. The bloodline boundary called penetration is about to move again. Uchiha-sama, you heard wrong. What I said is. As an honest person, Yuhi Junhong could not withstand such ridicule. He blushed and couldn't hold back a word for a long time. What I'm talking about is. Red, Fusuke-sama. I wish you happiness. Yuhi Junhong's face turned red from holding back, he said loudly to Feng Jie in a roaring manner. Fusuke, what should I do if I marry the daughter of a subordinate? Waiting online, it's quite urgent. Is it possible that we have to discuss things on their own terms in the future? I call you father-in-law, but you call me leader. Fusuke was confused for a moment, not knowing what to say. On the contrary, Yuhi Hong's face gradually returned to its normal expression after hearing her father's blessing. I will, father, Yuhi Hong whispered to Yuhi Mahong. Hearing the sound, Shiri Junhong's eyes showed a hint of complexity. At that moment, he turned around slightly and silently returned the same way. Her daughter's boyfriend is actually the powerful third Hokage, which Yuhi Makoto didn't expect. Looking at Shiri Junhong's leaving figure, Uchiha Fusuke hesitated to speak. In the end, he silently watched Yuri Junhong go away. It seems that some things can only be accepted bit by time in the end. Chapter 94. With your thick eyebrows and big eyes, you look like the material for an undercover job. Advertisement. 5 years have passed. For 5 years, Uchiha Fusuke returned to Konoha and assumed the responsibility of Hokage. In the past 5 years, Tsunade never left Konoha again, but stayed in Konoha as the medical minister. During this period, Fusuke found Tsunade several times and expressed his intention to pass the position to Tsunade. But without exception, they were all rejected by Tsunade. Besides, after the turmoil in Uchiha, Jiraiya left the village, as if to avoid Tsunade, and never came back. These past 5 years, the Uchiha clan is completely integrated into Konoha's system. Coupled with the presence of Fusuke, the entire Konoha is unprecedentedly stable. With everyone working together inside and outside the village, it naturally entered a period of rapid development. Not only has the total number of ninjas exceeded the 30,000 mark, but there are currently as many as 500 jonin in Konoha. The number of cage-level experts in the village is close to exaggerated double digits. These are extremely exaggerated numbers, and they also indicate that Konoha's strength is unprecedentedly expanded at this time. Not just Konoha. After years of peace, the strength of the National Day Kingdom has gradually returned to its peak level. From this arises an extremely realistic problem. The so-called ninja world is not just a world of ninjas. Any group is like a castle in the air if it is separated from the ordinary people. Ninjas are humans too, and they also need to eat and drink. The profession of ninja sounds noble. It seems that he can destroy the world and save the world at every turn. But that is just a glorious section that hides the dirty and chaotic background and only cuts out the beginning and end. In the real world, to put it bluntly, ninja is just a violent business that provides money to do things. The lifeblood of a ninja's survival is mission. Tasks are as important to a ninja as a chef. Most of the output of tasks comes from ordinary people. The 840 ninja world is only that big, and its population and productivity are only that large. With the development and growth of violent institutions such as Ninja Village, this has led to an extremely realistic problem, that is, too many monks and too little food. After all, there are more and more monks, and rice porridge is all there is. There are only so many tasks in total. If you do them all, do you want to take any job? Over time, conflicts and frictions will break out between the major ninja villages. In an increasingly tense situation, the friction between shinobu villages will further expand into contradictions. As the actual people in power in this world, they are the shadows of the major villages. They are helpless in the face of this contradiction. Among the problems that exist in concrete reality, any words are feeble. Human nature is to pursue profits, and the development and growth of ninja village is inevitable. After all, you can't just watch other shinobi villages develop and grow every day while you remain indifferent, right? Therefore, even big countries can only be forced into the arms race. Until one day, when this contradiction reaches its limit, a war is bound to break out. At present, the ninja world seems to have reached such a delicate time point. If the ninja world is compared to the industry, then the 5 major ninja villages are like the 5 giants in the industry. The remaining small national ninja villages are small companies that exist inside. When large companies need to develop but encounter bottlenecks, they can only be backward compatible and grab the business of small companies. In this case, small companies are bound to be reluctant. So there was the Second Ninja World War initiated by a small country ninja village group headed by Rain Shinobi, Hanzo of the Salamander. Finally, in the Second Ninja War, it seemed that the 5 major powers suffered heavy casualties. But in fact, after the end of the Ninja War, the small countries as the main battlefield will be the worst. Ninjas in a large number of small countries were coerced by the war and had to join in, and were eventually cleaned out. The share of tasks generated within these small countries falls directly into the hands of the big countries. As a result, small countries have become pastures for the development of large countries and have become nutrients for development. Until now, the market of various small companies has once again been occupied by the 5 major countries. What follows is predictable. A fierce business war is about to break out among major countries. And among the 5 major countries in the ninja world. And Konoha is the strongest and most famous. Usually seizes the most market share. At this moment, Konoha seems to be brilliant, but in fact it has become a leader standing on the cusp of the storm. Uchiha Fusuke browsed the pieces of information on the table, a look of deep concern flashed in his eyes. Cloud Shinobi rises 20, Rock Shinobi rises 17, Sand Shinobi rises 10, Mist Shinobi rises 4. Fusuke rubbed his head and whispered, throwing a finished document on the table in front of him with piles of documents. This is another historical high point of friction and conflict between Konoha and the 4 major ninja villages in recent times. Among them, there are many cases of fighting to the death after friction broke out. At present, the 5 major ninja villages still retain a certain degree of restraint. Regarding the ninjas who died in the friction, most of the 5 major ninja villages maintained a tacit understanding of, if your skills are inferior to others, you will be considered dead if you die. But it is expected that this situation will not last long. Advertisement. At this moment, I am afraid that all it takes is an opportunity, and the Third Ninja War will inevitably begin. It's going to rain. My mother wants to get married. By then, no one person or force will be able to stop it. Fusuke picked up another document on the table. This information is marked with Konoha Anbu's unique mark, which means that this document is S-class, top secret. After opening it and reading it, Fusuke found that the content contained information about the recent activities of the rebel ninja organization, Akatsuki. This information is detailed. Even the recent mission status of the 10 S-class rebel ninja members of the Akatsuki organization is clear. In the past 5 years, the Akatsuki organization is like a heavy rain in June to the ninja world, suddenly appearing out of nowhere. And in a very short period of time, it spread from the land of rain to the entire ninja world. On the surface, the 5 major ninja villages refused to recognize this organization, which was composed entirely of rebellious ninjas. But in fact, all the large and small forces in the ninja world, including the 5 major countries, have interests involved in making peace with the Akatsuki organization. Nothing else. Who wouldn't like an organization that gets paid to do things and has a very high success rate? And no matter who they treat, Akatsuki's goal is to treat them equally. As long as you can get the money. The Akatsuki organization not only helps small countries deal with big countries, but also secretly helps the 5 big countries to hinder each other. The style of conduct is reckless and lawless. However, due to its strong strength and good reputation in the industry, the Akatsuki organization gradually developed and expanded in the ninja world. Fusuke studied the information. These are the trends of 10S class rebellious ninjas from the Akatsuki organization. The 10 members are Akatsukis, 0, Pen, the White Tiger of Akatsuki, Konan. Akatsukis, Xuanwu, Absolute. Akatsukis, Nantu, Dried Persimmon Kisame. Akatsukis, Empty Chen, Obito. The Jade Girl of Shao, Scorpion of Red Sand. Akatsuki, Blue Dragon, Didera. Akatsukis, Beto, Kakuzu. 3 platforms of Akatsuki, Hidan. And the last one, Akatsukis, Suzaku, Uchiha Shisui. During these 5 years, another big thing happened in Konoha. That is, the defection of Jonin Uchiha Shisui. It is said. After the Uchiha rebellion, Uchiha Shisui secretly entangled a group of Uchiha tribesmen, intending to avenge Uchiha's former, great elder, Uchiha Kagami. Unexpectedly, after the incident was revealed, Uchiha Shisui had no choice but to defect to Konoha. After almost going through many twists and turns, Shisui was absorbed by the Akatsuki organization, and became an S-class traitor ninja ranked among the most wanted in the ninja world. The end of this information. He also explained that most of the members of the Akatsuki organization had been ordered by their leader, Zero, to go to the Kingdom of Water and be on standby. At the end of the information in Fusuke's hands, there is a symbol that looks like a raven. This also shows that this information comes from the currency of Konoha Anbu member, Raven. And this so-called Raven is Uchiha Shisui's former code name of Anbu. Similarly, this codename's confidentiality level within Konoha is also the highest, S, level. After reading this information, I felt satisfied. This guy Shisui did a good job. Back then, I thought this guy had thick eyebrows and big eyes. He was a good material for an undercover job. Fusuke said with a hint of emotion, a hint of sadness flashed in his eyes. That's right, Uchiha Shisui's defection was arranged by Fusuke. The so-called revenge for my father is just external rhetoric. The purpose is for Shisui to break into the Akatsuki organization as an undercover agent and control the activities of the Akatsuki organization. It seems now, Shisui's undercover career can no longer be described as successful, but as perfect. As if thinking of something, Fusuke subconsciously showed a deep smile. Quote. Just then, there was a knock on the door of Hokage's office. Please come in. After Fusuke raised his hand to burn the top secret information in his hand, he raised his head towards the door for medical treatment. I saw a handsome girl who looked about 17 or 18 years old, with long purple hair and carrying a long knife, walked into the room. It's Shi Yan. Fusuke smiled gently and greeted the visitor. The girl's name is Azuki Yugon, and she is now a member of Anbu directly under the Hokage. Responsible for protecting the safety of Hokage and delivering messages to Hokage. To put it simply, he is responsible for the work of bodyguard plus errand running. Third generation Sama. There is a messenger from Miss Shinobi at the entrance of the village asking for an audience. Azuki Shion told Fusuke with a serious face. Advertisement. Miss Shinobi. Then bring her here. Fusuke raised his eyebrows, and a trace of curiosity flashed in his heart. At this point in time, why did Miss Shinobi's messenger suddenly come to the door? Yes, at that moment, after receiving Fusuke's order, Shi Yan turned around and went to execute the order. As soon as Mao Yushian left, she was in the corridor. Zhonghe met a beautiful girl with a young woman temperament. Lord Hong. Xian took the initiative to greet Yuri Hong. Her eyes unconsciously glanced at the ink diamond mark on Yuri Hong's forehead, and a trace of envy flashed in her eyes. It's Shi Yan. Is Fusuke in there? Yuri Hong showed a smile, which was full of gentleness and pleasantness. Under Fusuke's nourishment, the originally young girl has become a ripe fruit, and her figure has become more mature and plump. Only because of the existence of the eternal seal, Yuri Hong's appearance still maintains the beauty of a girl. This makes Yuri Hong still have the sweet appearance of a girl. But she gained the gentle and charming temperament of a young woman. Lord Hokage is inside. Uoyuki Shion respectfully replied to Shihi Hong. As the saying goes, one person attains enlightenment and a chicken or a dog ascends to heaven. Although the two people are not much different in age, there is a qualitative gap in their identities. 5 years have passed, and Yuri Hong is no longer the silly girl who didn't understand anything. She was keenly aware of the envious look in Mao Yushian's eyes. This is not the first time Raihong has seen such a look in the eyes of a girl in the village. Gentle, strong, handsome, high position and authority. If in another world, Uchiha Fusuke could be said to be the perfect, tyrannical president, template. Therefore, it is conceivable how many people of the opposite S**X want to fall in love with Fusuke. The name Uchiha Fusuke has long been equated with a girl's dream in Konoha. Even though there are 2 sisters on Yuri Hong. But this third child position is enough to make most women covetous. Not an exaggeration. If Uchiha Fusuke thought about it, Konoha would have turned into his harem long ago. But for 5 years, except for the 3 women he had a relationship with, he stayed away from any women. Even Tsunade, who has an ambiguous relationship, has been standing still for many years and has not been accepted by Fusuke. Only today does Raihong understand how lucky she was in the past. If she hadn't caught on to the hitchhiking launched by Ayako, she might never have had a chance to meet Fusuke in this life. Think of this. A trace of happiness flashed through Yuhi Hong's heart again. That's it. Thank you, Xian. She said goodbye to Uiyu Xian with a soft smile, then opened the door and walked into the office. Looking at the closed door of Hokage's office, a trace of disappointment flashed in Azuki Xian's eyes. There is no way, the male god will always belong to someone else. When it's my turn, the rest are all male nerves. Thinking of Yu Guangfeng, who had been pursuing her recently, a trace of helplessness flashed in Uiyu Xian's eyes. People are more likely to die than others, and products are more likely to be thrown away than others. As the saying goes, one should never meet someone who is too stunning when he is young, and this is true. After meeting Fusuke, other men are no longer attractive to Azuki Yugao. This is the truth of, one sight of Fusuke leads to a mistake in life. In the office, in order to maintain the record of getting off work on time, Fusuke still works tirelessly on the official duties at hand. After seeing the young wife pushing open the door, he showed a smile. Yuhi Hong shook the food box in her hand and said coquettishly to Fusuke. Husband, I'm here. Afterwards, the cute wife Yuhi Kurenai came to Fusuke's side and skillfully opened the food box to make some cloth. Due to Fusuke's busy schedule, lunch is basically served every day in Hokage's office. The three beauties of the third Hokage will take turns coming to feed them, which is something that all members of the Hokage building are aware of. Obviously, today is the rotation of Yuhi Hong. Thank you for your hard work, Hong. Fusuke rubbed his little wife's little head, and a soft feeling flashed in his heart. A famous female writer once said that the shortcut to the female soul is the Y way. This is similar to men. No matter how bad a man is, he will inevitably feel shaken when faced with a woman who is willing to personally cook you a bowl of plain water. Quote. Kurenai squinted her eyes, enjoying Fusuke's touch. Suddenly, the door to Hokage's office was pushed open again. The visitor entered directly without knocking. This is an honor that can only be obtained by a person who has an extremely close relationship with Fang. Except for Ayako, Renka and Yuhi Kurenai, only Tsunade in the entire Konoha has this kind of treatment. Master, here is a copy. Tsunade said as he walked into the office holding a document. But I saw the close interaction between Fusuke and Kurenai Yuhi. At that moment, a hint of darkness flashed in Tsunade's beautiful eyes, and his expression became a little silent. Chapter 95, Feeding Play, Terumi Mei's Visit. Advertisement. Ah, it's Tsunade's sister. Seeing Tsunade suddenly appear, Yuhi's pretty face turned red, and she immediately stood up and greeted Tsunade. She didn't dare to put on the airs of teacher's wife at all. Kurenai Yuhi knew that in Fusuke's heart, Tsunade, her apprentice, always held a special place. Moreover, the sisters Hyuga and Uchiha have already acquiesced to Tsunade's position in the palace. I'm afraid it's only a final kick before Tsunade enters the palace. I'm afraid it's hard to say who will be the sister, and who will be the sister, in the future. 1*1. Xiao Gang, what's wrong? Fusuke smiled awkwardly and asked Tsunade proactively. Tsunade didn't speak, but placed a document in front of Fusuke with a silent expression. Obviously, Tsunade, who is Konoha's medical minister, came to Fusuke at this time because he had official matters to resolve. Facing Fusuke's inquiry, Tsunade just glanced at Fusuke silently. A pair of big bright eyes full of resentment. You haven't eaten yet. Then, together, in order to resolve Tsunade's resentful look, Fangea could only invite him at the right time. Upon hearing this, Tsunade, who had been waiting for this sentence for a long time, was not polite and approached Fusuke familiarly. Judging from the action, maybe this is not the first time. From this point of view, if Tsunade came at this time, it might not be a tower. Kurenai Yuhi handed a pair of chopsticks to Tsunade with an obedient expression, and winked at Tsunade without moving her expression. At that moment, Tsunade responded with the same wink. The meals brought by Yuhi Hong couldn't help but look beautifully made and full of portions. It looked like there were at least 3 servings. Tsunade picked up his chopsticks and tasted the dishes on the table. Delicious. Today it looks like Sister Ayako's craftsmanship. Tsunade tasted it and commented, with a trace of satisfaction in his eyes. Then, a hint of cunning flashed through her bright amber gemstone eyes. Master. Tsunade used the chopsticks she had already used to pick up the food on the plate and handed it to Fusuke. She stared closely at Fusuke's face, which was full of seriousness and expectation. Fusuke has always rejected this kind of feeding. He turned to look at Yuhi Hong beside him and asked for chopsticks with his eyes. But not 12 materials. After seeing Fusuke's eyes, Yuhi Hong immediately covered her mouth and said in a surprised voice. I'm sorry, husband. Unexpectedly, Sister Tsunade came back with only 2 pairs of chopsticks. At this moment, Yuhi Hong put the chopsticks into Sakura's mouth in front of Fusuke. Then, she looked at Fusuke pretending to be apologetic, but there was not much apology in her eyes. Fusuke. Looking at the meal for 3 people in front of him, Fusuke fell silent. Okay. Meals are prepared for 3 people, but only 2 pairs of chopsticks are prepared, right? As the saying goes, it is most difficult to accept the kindness of a beautiful woman. It seemed that he sensed Fusuke's resistance, but Tsunade still didn't give up. Master. Ah. Tsunade opened her red lips again, her amber eyes full of pleading and pity. Forced by form. In the end, Fusuke couldn't bring himself to do it, so he had a finger meal. So he could only helplessly open his mouth. Tsunade used the wet chopsticks to put the food into Fusuke's mouth. Seeing the pair of chopsticks she had used put into Fusuke's mouth, a trace of satisfaction flashed in Tsunade's gem eyes, and a hint of blush flashed on her pretty face. On the other side, Yuhi Hong is well aware of Tsunade's operation. So she followed suit. Also used the chopsticks she used to make the dishes taste better. Fusuke glanced helplessly at Yuhi Kurenai beside him. As the saying goes, if there is a first time, there will be countless times. There is no reason why he has already accepted the feeding from his apprentice and deliberately refuses the feeding from his little wife. So Fusuke had no choice but to accept Yuhi Kurenai's wet chopsticks. As Kurenai Yuhi put the food into Fusuke's mouth, a trace of satisfaction flashed in her beautiful eyes. She finally experienced the joy of Tsunade. Ever since, the two girls Tsunade and Yuhi Kurenai started a feeding game with, you take one bite and I take one bite. Until a moment later, although Fusuke's hands, the three of them had already had a full meal. Quote. Without further ado, there was a knock on the door of Hokage's office again. Yuhi Kurenai knew that Fusuke might be busy. As a good wife, it's time for the little sweet wife to step aside. Husband, I'm going home first. Shiri Hong smiled sweetly, left a lip mark on Feng Ji's profile, stood up and left. Advertisement. By the way, Fusuke's current residence in Konoha is the Third Hokage house, located on Konoha's Noble Street. Not far from the Third Hokage house, there happens to be the residence where Tsunade lives. Every night, the Third Hokage family of 4 basically sleep on the big bed that can accommodate 10 people. Looking at Yuhi Kurenai's skillful and kind actions, a trace of envy and sadness flashed in Tsunade's eyes. When Yuhi Hong left, she opened the door and let the people outside enter the house. The person who came was none other than Uoyuki Shion, who had gone to carry out Feng Ji's order. Behind her, there was a woman wearing a blue dress with long hair that covered her eyes. Third generation Sama. This is a messenger from Miss Shinobi, following your orders. I brought her. Azuki Shion kneeled down on one knee respectfully and reported to Fusuke. Thank you for your hard work, Shion. Go down. Fusuke still just said to Uezuki Shion in a warm voice. Yes. Mao Yu Shion bowed her head and resigned. After Shi Yan left, this mature and beautiful woman took the initiative to step forward and speak. Dear Lord Third Hokage, Kurigakure Jonin Terumi Mei, on behalf of the 4th Mizukage Sama, I would like to express my highest respect to you. As she spoke, she respectfully raised the letter high with both hands. Follow normal procedures. What Terumi Mei, the Miss Shinobi messenger, handed over, should be a handwritten letter from the 4th Mizukage. The content is the main purpose of sending the envoy. Seeing this, Tsunade queued up. She stood up and took the letter from Terumi Mei, then handed it to Fusuke. After receiving the letter, Fusuke was not in a hurry to open the envelope in his hand. He looked at the familiar faces in front of him calmly, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. Unexpectedly, the messenger sent by Miss Shinobi turned out to be Terumi Mei, a popular beauty character in the original work. He could tell at a glance that the young Terumi Mei had not yet reached her peak, and her strength had not yet reached the threshold of a cage-level powerhouse. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't be used as a messenger. Different from the original work, the peach is already ripe when it appears. At this time, Terumi Mei looked only about 20 years old. Although it lacks the maturity of a young woman, it has the charm of a young girl. In the ninja world, she is considered a first-rate beauty. After a brief glance, Fusuke didn't pay much attention. He opened the 4th Mizukage's handwritten letter and read its contents. At the same time, Terumi Mei also took this opportunity to look at the two people on the other side. Although they were not introduced to each other, she recognized Enshing beside Funga at a glance as Tsunade from Sannin. After all, as one of the Sannin, who has been famous for many years, Miss Shinobi still knows the basic information about Tsunade. But Terumi Mei just glanced at Tsunade. Then he took a closer look at the Third Hokage, who was famous in the ninja world. To Uchiha, Fusuke is a legend of the clan. To Konoha, Fusuke is the Hokage respected by everyone. And for other ninja villages, this is a cruel, murderous and mysterious man. Uchiha Fusuke's image is roughly the same as the Demon King. So compared to the name, Third Hokage, what impressed Terumi Mei even more was the nickname, Blood Shinigami, which sounded a bit middle class. Before meeting Uchiha Fusuke, in her fantasy, the Third Hokage is supposed to be a bad old man in his 80s with gloomy and scary eyes. But what she never expected was, the rumored, bloody Shinigami, turns out to be a handsome guy. Okay, it's great to shout. Terumi Mei exclaimed secretly in her heart. At the same time, Feng Jie also basically finished reading the content of the letter. The content of the letter is roughly this. Not long ago, the 3rd Mizukage passed away due to illness, and the 4th Mizukage Yagura took over. Therefore, Miss Shinobi wanted to hold this Chunin exam, and specially invited the other 4 major ninja villages, including Konoha, to participate. In the letter, Citrus Tangerine Yagura also specifically mentioned it. The third Hokage of Cloud Shinobi Village has stated that he will personally attend this Chunin examination. The promotion of ninjas can be decided by their respective ninja villages. Therefore there is no Jonin exam and Genin exam at all. As long as the village recognizes your strength and feels that you have made enough contributions, it will naturally grant you the corresponding level. Even most Chunin are awarded by their respective shinobi villages. But even so, in peaceful times, the ninja world still holds the Chunin examination twice a year. This is because the Chunin examination has two levels of special political significance. First, through this platform, major ninja villages can flex their muscles with each other to show off their own village's prowess. The ninjas who can be selected to participate in the Chunin examination are basically the genin elites in their respective villages, representing the face of their respective villages. A battle at this level will neither seem too inconsequential, nor will it expand beyond control. The scale is just right. Advertisement. Otherwise, if the Jonin examination is conducted, it is very likely that the examination will directly turn into a war by then. Oh, after all, with how precious Jonin is, the 5 great ninja villages cannot afford to lose it easily. Secondly, this kind of activity also provides a platform for diplomacy between the 5 major ninja villages. You can take the opportunity to exchange information, or use some diplomatic means. Achieve certain purposes. All in all, the significance of the Chunin examination is no small matter. Mist Shinobi took the initiative to hold the Chunin exam. I am afraid that the 4th Mizukage wanted to take the opportunity to declare its existence to the ninja world and indicate that Zunin had entered a new era. The courage to invite the 4 major ninja villages to participate in the Chunin examination at once seems to prove that the newly appointed 4th Mizukage has extraordinary courage. After reading the letter, a trace of deep understanding flashed in Yinji's eyes. It turns out to be the Chunin examination. Besides the letter, did 4th Mizukage have anything else to say? Fusuke asked Terumi-mei in front of him in a gentle voice, giving people a gentle feeling like a spring breeze. 4th Mizukage-sama specifically asked me to express his admiration for you. So he wants you to go to Mist Shinobi in person. Terumi-mei spoke in a low voice, and after saying some useless beautiful words, invited Fangjae to go to Yuanian in person. After saying that, Terumi-mei raised her head and glanced at Fusuke with some anxiety. Looking at Fusuke's gentle face, she wondered whether the famous Scarlet Shinigami would agree to her request. A rare sincere invitation from 4th Mizukage. I agreed. Fusuke said calmly and agreed to Terumi-mei's request. Yes, thank you Mie Tianping. Please allow me to lead you to Kurigakure. Terumi-mei was a little surprised, she didn't expect Fang to agree to 4th Mizukage's request so easily. In Terumi-mei's imagination, this kind of major matter, for which the Hokage personally intervened, should at least be discussed by the village's top management at a collective meeting. I didn't expect that the decision would be so hasty. In fact, although Konoha at the moment cannot be said to be Fang's one-word hall. But not many people dare to contradict Fusuke face to face. But, coincidentally, there happened to be such a person in front of Fusuke at this moment. Terumi-mei Jonin, you go down first. While you are in Konoha, someone will be responsible for your daily life. I still have something to discuss with Lord Hokage. Tsunade suddenly stood up and spoke to Terumi-mei in a calm voice. Yes, seeing that Fusuke didn't speak, he acquiesced to Tsunade, and Terumi-mei turned around and left. After Terumi-mei left, Tsunade immediately said to Fangji with a delicate face and a calm voice. Master, your decision is too hasty. For your own safety, I believe you will refuse to go to Mist Shinobi. Just send a representative. Tsunade's face was full of seriousness. Since recalling Fusuke's gone old overnight experience. Compared to the other 3 women, Wang is more individualistic and safe. Seeing this, Fusuke covered his head helplessly. He knew Tsunade would say this. 4th Mizukage said in the letter that Medai has agreed to go. Whether it's his little trick or it's true. If I don't go, I'll lose my reputation as a Hokage. Fusuke explained while handing the letter in his hand to Tsunade. Hearing the sound, Tsunade frowned and took the letter. After reading it roughly, she forced a look of embarrassment on her face. If you must go, then take me with you, I will definitely protect Master's safety. Although Tsunade's pretty face was stern, her sparkling eyes revealed her inner thoughts. No. Seeing this, Fusuke showed an annoyed look and refused. Fusuke is not stupid, of course he can see that Tsunade is a drunkard who doesn't care about drinking. Upon hearing this, Tsunade's eyes changed, and he looked at Fusuke in silence again with a resentful face. Only this time, Fusuke did not agree to Tsunade's request as easily as before. When the plan failed, Tsunade reborn as a club. Okay, Master. Finally, Tsunade sighed with disappointment in his eyes, seeming to compromise. Hearing Tsunade's sigh, Fangjae thought she was about to give up. Suddenly, she spoke again. In this case, I can only tell that thing to Sister Ayako and Sister Renhua. They definitely don't want to see Master's hair turn gray. Tsunade pretended to have no choice, and sighed helplessly. Hear the sound. Fusuke's face suddenly stiffened. He had already thought of the scene where Ayako and Renka hung on him, insisting on going to Mist Shinobi. As the saying goes, the lesser of 2 powers harms each other. Carrying a pendant is better than carrying all pendants. Chapter 96, Harem Status, Kitten, Bunny, Little Fox. Advertisement. Okay, can't I let you go? Fusuke rubbed his temples and said unhappily. That's it. Master is the best. Tsunade's beautiful eyes instantly sparkled, and she was ready to approach Fusuke and take the opportunity to express her excited emotions. But Fusuke acted as if he had expected it, and silently left Tsunade far away. Quote. Smelly master. Tsunade's face dropped and she pouted. Yes, if you don't take advantage, you will become a stinky master. Fusuke's eyes flashed with helplessness again. Humph. Forget it if you don't let me kiss you. When it comes to Miss Shinobi, there are plenty of opportunities. Tsunade immediately comforted himself in his heart, and then left Hokage's office with a bright smile. After Tsunade left, Fusuke stared at the letter from Yagura in his hand, with a deep look in his eyes. Nowadays, the ninja world is in turmoil, and the strength of the major ninja villages has increased, and they are all gearing up. At this juncture, the significance of this Chunin exam seems extraordinary. As the leader of Konoha, Fang naturally wants to try to prevent Konoha from getting involved in the quagmire of war. The best way is to pass this Chunin exam to curb the expanding ambitions of the other ninja villages. When necessary, Fusuke feels that he can even take the approach of killing the chicken to scare the monkey. Besides, Fusuke also knows that the water in Kurigakure is very deep. To the ninja world, the newly appointed 4th Mizukage may still be a bit unfamiliar. But for Fusuke, he doesn't know everything about this 4th Mizukage, but he also knows the most. Yagura, the second Jinchuriki of Three Tails. In the original work, not long after the 4th Mizukage took office, he launched a brutal policy called the Blood Mist Lane in Mist Shinobi. This also caused Mist Shinobi's strength to continue to deplete internally, as the elites repeatedly endured jumps and died. All this seems to be because 4th Mizukage Goju Yagura is confused and fooling around. In fact, it was because of Obito's secret revenge. The source of everything must be traced from the Lin's death incident that year. In Obito's eyes, Mist Shinobi is undoubtedly one of the first objects of his hatred. So for revenge, Obito manipulated Mizukage and caused the Mist Shinobi to fight among themselves. He single-handedly planned this revolution in the Blood Mist that shocked the ninja world. Within Mist Shinobi, even elite ninjas such as Momochi Zabuza and Inagaki Kisame cannot escape persecution. Not to mention how many ordinary ninjas died under the influence of this Blood Mist. The success of Uchiha Obito. It is also enough to explain many things from the side. Even if Obito has Mangekyo Sharingan. But the dignified shadow of a village was so easily controlled by Obito. What does this mean? It means that Mist Shinobi has already been penetrated into a sieve. In fact, as early as when Uchiha Madara was still alive, he secretly controlled a large number of Mist Shinobi Anbu's elite ninjas. After Madara's death, Obito also inherited control of these fog ninjas. This provided convenience for him to control the 4th Mizukage. But one thing is for sure. Yagura was only controlled after taking over Mizukage. So at this point in time he has just become the 4th Mizukage. Even Fusuke has a hard time judging. This Chunin exam was actually a conspiracy arranged by Obito by manipulating Yagura. After taking office, Yagura simply acted politically to highlight his existence. In Fusuke's heart, he is actually more inclined to think that this may be some kind of conspiracy of Obito. Because judging from the information passed by Shisui. Recently, a large number of members of the Akatsuki organization have gone to the Kingdom of Water. This should not be a coincidence. Even if Yagura is not controlled by Obito at the moment, then the Akatsuki organization must be planning some kind of action in Mist Shinobi. Quote. Anyway, I have to go to Kurigakure sooner or later. It's time to bring that thing back. This kid Obito, let me see what tricks he can do. Fusuke sighed secretly, thinking silently in his heart. In the face of absolute strength, all strategies are trivial. He didn't think that Obito had the ability to overturn him. Under this premise, whatever King Ku wants to do is up to him. Then, Fusuke then made clear his two goals for this trip to Mist Shinobi. First, Yin Yuanian obtained that thing. Second, successfully completing the Chunin exam demonstrates Konoha's authority in the ninja world. When necessary, it can kill chickens and scare monkeys. At this moment, Fusuke began to plan who would take the Chunin exam. Snapped. Soon, Fusuke raised his head and snapped his fingers. Afterwards, Mao Yuxian, who had been waiting outside the door for a long time, quickly entered the office. Lord Hokage, what are your orders? Azuki Shiin respectfully asked Fusuke for instructions. Go and tell everyone on this list to gather in the forest outside the village at night. Fusuke casually threw the note he had just written into Azuki Shiin's hand. Yes, advertisement. Azuki Shiin glanced at it after taking the note, and then went to carry out Fusuke's order. After doing all this, Fusuke left Hokage's office with a relaxed look and chose to leave work early. This way, Tsunade after leaving Hokage's office. Go straight to the Third Hokage house, located on the Konoha Noble Street. She entered the gate familiarly and walked straight into the courtyard. At this moment, three girls, Ayako Uchiha, Renka Hyuga, and Kurenai Yuhi, are arranging flowers in the courtyard. The faces of the three women are all stunning, and against the backdrop of flowers, they look even more tranquil and beautiful. Seeing the quiet years of Ayako and the three girls, Tsunade once again had a trace of envy in his eyes. Waited for 5 years. Now, Tsunade has finally found the perfect time to join in. She urgently needs the palace think tank, Uchiha Ayako, to help her come up with ideas. As the saying goes, this time, that time. After 5 years of accumulation, Tsunade has long forgotten all the new and old grudges at the beginning. Instead, Tsunade was in front of Ayako, who had already vaguely confirmed her status as eldest sister. Most of the time, she also chooses to call Ayako sister. Sister Ayako, Sister Renhua, Sister Hong. Please help me think of a solution. Tsunade came to the three women who were studying flower arrangement with an eager look on his face and spoke. Oh, pull, it's little Tsunade. Don't be impatient. Sit down and talk slowly. Seeing Tsunade's arrival, Ayako chuckled and said, a pair of charming girls turning into a pair of crescent moons. Ayako was lying on her side in the courtyard at this time, wearing a decent black dress that perfectly highlighted her delicate figure. Since the plan came true and Fusuke was by his side, Ayako's extreme attitude has been greatly restrained, and she looks more like a good wife and mother. As she smiled softly, the mature and charming charm of a married woman made people move their fingers. Not only that, thanks to Fusuke's hard work, although Ayako has no children, her figure has become more and more beautiful. Especially when lying on her side, Ayako's waist-to-hip ratio looks even more amazing. Even Tsunade, who is also a woman, could not help but subconsciously have such an idea in her mind. Sister Ayako's body must be soft and comfortable when running. But so far, only Fusuke has experienced this wonderful softness. Without enough time to think too deeply, Tsunade hurriedly informed Sannin about the Chunin examination. The situation is like this. Hearing the sound, the three women looked at each other. Hyuga, who was still on the side, was the first to make a move. Stare. Renka stared at Tsunade in front of her with emotionless eyes. Under these colorless eyes, Tsunade felt a little confused. Fusuke would have seen it if he had been there. At this moment, there was a hint of compassion hidden deep in Leon's indifferent glazed eyes. Renhua didn't speak, but held Tsunade's little hand expressionlessly, and then pulled him close to her. Then, she held Tsunade's head in her arms, raised her little hand and gently stroked Tsunade's head. Pitiful. While Leon was stroked Tsunade's little head, she uttered 2 words in a calm voice. Hearing the sound, Tsunade's delicate body trembled. Only then did she realize that this was Leon's comfort to her. Tsunade raised her head helplessly, only to find that 2 heavy, big cushions were pressing on her head, making her unable to raise her head at all. At the moment, Tsunade had no choice but to let it go. Renhua's pity for Tsunade is not unreasonable. Ayako, Renge and Yuhi Kurenai have already acquiesced in Tsunade's place in the palace. With the support of 3 women. Over the years, Tsunade has continued to attack Fusuke. But I never expected it. Fusuke is like a dead-faced steamed bun in a steamer, it won't budge no matter how steamed it is. So every time Tsunade attack fails, they will all come to seek help from the 3 women, mainly Ayako, hoping that Ayako's military advisor can help her make suggestions. This time is certainly no exception. Seeing the interaction between Tsunade and Renhua, Ayako on the side suddenly smiled. Ayako-sama, please help Tsunade-sama. At this moment, Kurenai Yuhi, who was looking increasingly girlish, helped Tsunade plead for mercy. Hearing the sound, Ayako said calmly, this is indeed an opportunity for little Tsunade. I think we also need to provide her with some help. Ayako caressed her smooth chin, looking like a female Zug in the world. Hearing the sound, Yuhi Hong on the side immediately showed an expression of admiration. Even Tsunade, who was held in Renhua's arms, struggled to reveal his eyes from the cushion, and looked at Ayako with hope. Seeing this, Ayako smiled ghostly. I know what Fusuke ni likes best. When the time comes, you will have the win-win trump card we have prepared for you. We will definitely succeed. Ayako smiled softly, with a hint of charm flashing in her eyes. What, Sister Ayako, tell me quickly. Advertisement. Hearing the sound, Tsunade instantly became a little anxious. Tsunade never expected that Ayako would secretly hide such a trump card for many years. Hear the sound. Yuhi Hong on the side also showed a bit of surprise. Sister Ayako, are you talking about? Yuhi Hong said with a slight surprise, a hint of trepidation and shyness flashed in her eyes. At the same time, a bad premonition flashed through her heart. Yes, our little rabbit has become smarter. At that moment, Ayako showed a somewhat evil smile. Hearing this title, Yuhi Hong immediately understood what she was talking about and started to run away. But Ayako didn't leave any chance for Kurenai Yuhi to escape. Shua. Ayako suddenly took action and captured Yuhi Kurenai on the spot. Let me see where Fusuke ni's favorite things are. Woohoo, it turns out to be here. After Ayako captured Yuhi Kurenai, she searched Yuhi Kurenai's body and finally found something that surprised Tsunade. Well, don't want. Yuhi Hong was shocked and quickly snatched it away, her pretty face looking as embarrassed as a tomato. Huh, what is this? Tsunade looked at the items in Ayako's hands in confusion, her bright amber eyes full of doubts. Clang 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 clang. This is it. Ayako didn't pay any attention to Yuhi Kurenai, who was already ashamed and angry. She just stood on tiptoes and raised the object in her hand high with pride. Due to the height difference, Yuhi Kurenai couldn't reach the things in Ayako's hands. Ooh, Sister Ayako, please spare me. Yuhi Hong blushed and fought for it, while begging Ayako for mercy. It seemed as if what Ayako held in her hand was proof of some kind of sin she was hiding. Tsunade looked at Ayako and Yuhi Kurenai with a question mark on his face. I don't understand why the two of them are fighting for such a mundane gadget. Tsunade took another closer look and saw that the item in Ayako's hand looked a bit like a rabbit tail. Seeing Tsunade's confused gaze, Yuhi Hong was so anxious that she almost cried. Ayako let go of poor Yuhi Kurenai and returned the tail to her. After getting back what she lost, Yuhi Hong breathed a sigh of relief and quickly hid the objects in her hands with a blushing face. Sister Ayako, you are bullying. Yuhi Hong said to Ayako angrily with a round and angry face. Hehe, I'm just showing it to little Tsunade. Ayako explained without sincerity, while turning her head to look at Tsunade with a slight smile. But she saw that Tsunade still seemed to be full of confusion, and his face was full of questions. He seemed to sense Tsunade's confusion. Lianhua took the initiative to, kindly, explain the king's explanation. Fusuke likes it. Her voice still sounded unwavering. These 4 simple words made Tsunade feel even more depressed. Why does master like this kind of thing? Tsunade was confused. She still doesn't seem to understand. Lianhua also groped around on her body and took out the items that belonged to her. Unlike Yuhi Kurenai's short-looking rabbit tail, Renhua has a cat's tail in her hand. Meow. Then, Lianhua tilted her head expressionlessly and softly imitated a cat's meow. This posture of Lianhua, coupled with the beautiful and clear face, instantly made people feel a violent shock in their hearts. Tsunade was stunned for a moment. Okay, so cute. Tsunade never expected that Lianhua, who always had a cold face, would show such an expression. But until now, Tsunade still didn't understand what was so special about this ordinary little object. Hehe, Tsunade-chan, come here and I'll tell you. At this moment, Ayako waved to Tsunade, smiling charmingly and beckoning her to come over. Tsunade broke free from Renka's arms and entered towards Ayako. At this time, she discovered that Ayako was holding a fox tail with a charming look on her face. Tsunade leaned in front of Ayako with a confused look on his face and listened quietly to Ayako's whisper. With Ayako's mysterious smile on her face, she leaned close to Tsunade's ear and kept whispering about bows. At that moment, Tsunade's milk-white skin instantly turned red. RKR 11. Tsunade looked at the 3 women holding objects in disbelief, his eyes full of shock. Now, Yuri Hong looked shy and seemed a little embarrassed. Renhua still had a cold face and tilted her head slightly, as if wondering why Tsunade had such an expression. Ayako, on the other hand, smiled lightly and looked at Tsunade with a, you've grown up, look. Chapter 97. Longevity. Your tail fell to the ground. Advertisement. At last, Tsunade shifted his gaze slightly. He placed his gaze on Ayako's plump part with an astonishing waist-to-hip ratio, and a dull look flashed in his eyes. Sensing Tsunade's gaze, Ayako didn't feel the slightest bit embarrassed. Instead, she smiled charmingly, twisted her slender waist and came closer to Tsunade. Giggle. Fang, Suke, brother, him. I really like it. Ayako leaned against Tsunade's ear and slowly said a devil's whisper. Tsunade suddenly let out a cry of shame. When Uchiha suddenly returned home, Tsunade had just left. At this moment, among Fusuke's 3 lovely wives, Little Kitty still tilted his head slightly, seeming to be emotionally confused. Little Rabbit was sitting there with a red face, a little angry, with a pair of watery red eyes full of shame and anger. As for the little fox, he was smiling softly and coaxing the angry little rabbit. Apparently he had bullied and provoked the poor little rabbit for some reason. Look at this warm scene. Fusuke felt a slight warmth in his heart. Then, he slowly walked towards the 3 lovely wives. Fusuke brother. Ayako was the first to notice Fusuke coming home, and greeted Fusuke with a sweet smile. Hearing the sound, Yuhi Hong, who was originally ashamed and angry, immediately stood up. Husband. Trying his best to hide the shame and anger in his eyes, he weakly opened his mouth to Feng Jie. But unexpectedly, maybe the movement was too big, or maybe I didn't hide it well in my haste. A small furry object fell to the ground. Looking at the rabbit tail that suddenly appeared, Uchiha Fusuke's eyes were filled with emotion. Sunset red, steam princess temperature is accumulating. Fusuke breathing slightly quickly. Ayako laughing like she's watching a good show giggle. The other side. Looking at the 3 people, the atmosphere suddenly fell into a strange state. Lianhua's eyes flashed with confusion again. Meow. She tilted her head slightly again and whispered. As everyone knows, this cute look became the last straw that broke the camel's back. Ever since, following the excitement of a certain Hokage, in the blink of an eye, the third Hokage, family of 4, appeared on the big bed big enough for 10 people to lie on it. That night, Senju Nawaki sneaked out of the house with a hint of excitement in his eyes. He looked left and right. After confirming that no one was around, he immediately rushed out of the house and ran towards the outside of the village. After a while, Senju Nawaki came to a place in the forest outside Konoha village. Can't go wrong. Azuki Yugon is the direct subordinate Anbu of brother 3rd generation. She asked me to come, writing means third generation. This time, brother third generation must have some tricks to teach me. Senju Naoki clenched his fists, a hint of excitement flashed in his eyes. Thinking of this, Senju Naoki leaned against the stump of a big tree skillfully, quietly waiting for the wind to arrive. Obviously, Senju Naoki is not unfamiliar with this kind of secret meeting. And all of this must start in front of the Fifth Army. 5 years ago, as Minato traveled around the ninja world, Fang regained control of the Hokage. It didn't take long. Fusuke discovered an extremely serious problem. That is, he doesn't want to go to work. As the Konoha Hokage, he is the leader of a violent organization in charge of more than 20,000 ninjas. It is natural to imagine the heavy responsibilities of Hokage and the number of chores he has to deal with every day. Although Fusuke already knew this. But Fusuke has been retired for many years and is used to a comfortable life. Faced with this kind of social animal life, it was still unacceptable for a while. But helpless. Because of various reasons. For a while, he still couldn't hand over the burden of Hokage. In this case, in order to continue to enjoy a comfortable retirement life, Fusuke had to start thinking about a solution. And there seems to be only one way to solve the problem once and for all. That is to cultivate new successors. Finally, after excluding all the Konoha veterans, Fusuke started this great undertaking called Hokage Development Plan. After some screening, Fusuke selected the seed subjects suitable for cultivation and began to screen and cultivate them. The specific list is as follows. The current heir of the Senju family and the grandson of Senju Hashirama, Senju Naoki. Hitaki Kakashi, the son of Chief Anbu Kakashi and a talented ninja with a Kamui Sharingan. Advertisement. The one who inherited the title of Konoha Blue Beast and exists as a nuclear weapon level Might Guy. A scientific genius, whose research ability is comparable to that of Orochimaru, and has the talent of a new generation of forbidden technique master, Yukushi Kabuto. And finally, there is also the cheap son that Fusuke took over for no reason. The most amazing genius of the Uchiha clan today, Uchiha Itachi. By the way, back then, Ayako wanted to play a trick on Tsunade. As a joke, she casually suggested that Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Sasuke be adopted as adopted sons. But after teasing Tsunade, perhaps because of the talents of the two brothers, Ayako did not choose to go back on her word, but acquiesced in the identity of Itachi and Sasuke's adopted son. In this case, because of the relationship with Ayako, Uchiha Fusuke inexplicably gave birth to two cheap sons. Although Fusuke has mixed feelings about this, but he didn't show too much resistance. Although in the original work, many of Uchiha Itachi's actions are not glorious. But things have come to that point. Itachi's behavior was more of an act of desperation. Of course, Fusuke couldn't let such a good talent go astray. So he half-heartedly accepted the identity of this adopted father. Certainly, on weekdays, Uchiha Itachi still only respectfully calls Fusuke Hokage-sama, and neither of them has ever publicly acknowledged this relationship. But basically in the village, anyone with a little bit of sense knows what is going on. Secretly, Fusuke and Itachi have also become accustomed to this father-son relationship. Yukushi Kabuto's situation is similar to Uchiha Itachi's. Both of them were persecuted by fate and eventually went dark. And because of Fusuke's existence. Not to mention Yukushi Kabuto, even Orochi, his life mentor, on the road to blackening. Now I am willing to 996 in Fungji's laboratory every day. Therefore, blackening does not exist at all for Yukushi Kabuto. There is no chance to black. And these 5 people are the Hokage seeds, selected by Fusuke carefully. In order to quickly realize the talents of these 5 people, the 5 people have the ability to assume the Hokage position as soon as possible. Fusuke chose the method most used in his previous life. That is to open a cram school, and open a small stove, for 5 people one by one. While teaching a few people at night to improve their strength, I also taught a few people the necessary skills to become Hokage. After 5 years of teaching, these seeded players, under Fusuke's training, have all realized their talents. At this moment, the strength of several people has reached or even exceeded the level in the original work. But due to some objectively existing, embarrassing problems, Fusuke finally gave up his advice. The matter of opening a small stove must not be exposed. The reason is also very direct. First up is Kakashi. It is different from the orphan appearance in the original work. Now that Hitaki Tsukumo is still alive and has a cage-level father, Kakashi naturally needs to carry on his father's legacy. Go inherit Tsukumo's skill pack. Among them are his superb earth-style skills and sword skills. In other words, Kakashi has been trained by Hitaki Tsukumo. Fusuke intervened rashly, seeming a little embarrassed. It seems quite a bit like competing with Hitaki Tsukumo as the successor. As the third Hokage respected by everyone in Konoha, Fusuke naturally wanted to avoid this embarrassing situation. For the sake of his reputation, Fusuke adheres to the principle of, one thing is worse than one thing less, so it is best to conceal it. Senju Naoki's situation is roughly similar to Kakashi's. As the heir to Senju of the Forest, Senju Naoki also has a cage-level sister Tsunade to train him. And blessed by the powerful foundation of Senju of the Forest. No matter how you look at the successor of Senju, it is not Fusuke's turn to train, Uchiha. This is true even if Fusuke is a high-ranking Hokage. Therefore, it is still the same sentence. The less trouble, the better. As a result, the master-disciple relationship between Oka and Naoki was concealed. As for Yakushi Kabuto, he is the one in the most embarrassing situation. Because of Yakushi Kabuto's scientific research talent, and the existence of Yakushi Nunoyu. A long time ago, Yakushi Kabuto has been accepted as a disciple by Orochimaru, and he is the famous and real kind. In this case, if Fusuke goes beyond Orochimaru and teaches Yakushi Kabuto his skills, wouldn't that completely mess up the hierarchy? At that time, wouldn't it be said, I call you senior brother, and you call me apprentice? This kind of embarrassing scene will happen. At last, Sheep Sun and Might Guy naturally have nothing to do with each other. But as the saying goes, treat everyone equally. For the Hokage, Fusuke still needs a bowl of water. It makes no sense for the other three to hide it, only these two brothers have the privilege. Therefore, the seed breeding plan was completely moved underground. Under the arrangement of time management guru, Uchiha Fusuke. The venue is the forest outside the village. There are 5 working days a week, and there is exactly one person to teach medicine. The time was arranged perfectly, and the matter was never exposed. The 5 of them all thought that they were Fusuke's only disciple. Please give me flowers. Senju Naoki was leaning on the tree stump, quietly waiting for the arrival of Uchiha Fusuke. Suddenly, advertisement. There was a slight noise in the trees not far away. Hearing the sound, Senju Naoki's expression became happy and he was ready to greet him immediately. But what he didn't expect was that a white hair suddenly emerged from the bushes. Kakashi, why is it you? At that moment, Senju Naoki's expression suddenly changed, and he spoke warily towards the white hair that suddenly emerged. Naoki-sama, why are you here too? Kakashi's expression also froze, and he looked at Senju Naoki who appeared in front of him strangely. Although both are Jonin, compared to Kakashi, Senju Naoki is older and also serves as the squad leader of Hokage Direct Anbu. Therefore, Senju Naoki's status in the village is still significantly higher than Kakashi. Therefore, in the village, every time 2 people meet each other, Kakashi will use the honorific title for each other. Also, Naoki tasted Kakashi's words with some suspicion. Oops. Hearing the sound, Kakashi's face froze. In his heart, Fusuke's little trouble for him must not be exposed. At the same time, Naoki's expression on the other side of Kakashi also changed. He didn't bother to ponder what was wrong with Kakashi's words. At this moment, in Naoki's heart, his thoughts were synchronized with Kakashi's. That is, what if things are exposed? Present. The 2 of them didn't care to think about the other's purpose in coming to this barren forest. 0. They all thought about what reasons they should use to prevaricate each other. After all, appearing in this forest in the middle of the night, no matter how you look at it, it looks suspicious. If the other party asks, how should he answer? The 2 stared at each other at the same time. Because of nervousness, both of their faces looked a little tense. See the weird look on the other person's face. Both Naoki and Kakashi thought the other party had discovered some clue. What should I do? How should I explain? X2. Naoki and Kakashi said anxiously in their hearts at the same time. Suddenly, both of them thought of a suitable reason at the same time. Even if you say this, you will inevitably be laughed at by the other party. But this is better than having their own secrets exposed. In the forest, in the middle of the night, alone. The 2 of them also planned to speak first to be stronger. Actually, I came here to take a dump. Actually, I came here to take a dump. As the 2 people finished speaking, the scene fell into silence for a while. The 2 of them froze at the same time, looking at each other with strange expressions. After a long time, Senju Naoki was the first to react. What a coincidence. Kakashi. Senju Naoki scratched his head and laughed while thinking about how to alleviate this embarrassing situation. Maybe it's because I have nothing to say. Or perhaps it was to enhance the persuasiveness of his words. Senju Naoki suddenly spoke again. That. Did you bring any paper? Naoki asked, stammering with an awkward smile. Hearing the sound, Kakashi suddenly stiffened, as if he had been electrocuted. No, I didn't bring. Kakashi hesitated for a moment, but still answered Senju Naoki with a stiff expression. This moment, both of them felt as if they had knocked over a condiment bottle, with mixed feelings. Late at night, 2 men who shit without paper met in a quiet forest. Now, even if both of them are fools, they can still feel that something is wrong in the group relationship. Before the 2 of them could ask further questions. Suddenly, Shishi Suosuo. There was another noise from the trees on one side. Yo ho, Konoha's blue beast is here. With a strange scream, a man with a watermelon rind on his head appeared at the meeting between Kakashi and Naoki. Kakashi. Senju Naoki. Obviously, the one who suddenly jumped out of the bushes at this moment was Might Guy, who was also on the seed list. As soon as Might Guy jumped out, he saw Kakashi and Senju Naoki in front of him. At that moment, the atmosphere between the 3 of them fell into an eerie silence. Might Guy's expression was also stiff. It's basically the same as the 2 people's previous mental journeys. Might Guy's first thought was also the fear of exposure. Ever since, Might Guy's brain, which was not known for his intelligence, quickly thought of a perfect reason for covering up. After pondering for a moment, Might Guy spoke with an extremely serious expression. Actually, I'm here to shit 9. Chapter 98, Am I the protagonist? What? Do you also have my plugin? Advertisement. Hearing the sound, Kakashi and Senju Naoki looked at each other in understanding. The corners of their eyebrows and toes were twitching unconsciously. Although Kakashi and Senju Naoki have realized something is wrong. Did you bring any paper? X2. The two said in unison again. After saying that, the two of them seemed to have guessed something at the same time. They looked at each other and fell silent at the same time. Might Guy's face froze, but he was not good at lying, but he answered simply. Kakashi, Senju Naoki, Might Guy. The three of them were all silent, and for a moment there was only the sound of their toes digging into the ground. From the grass on the other side, a young man with silver-gray hair and round-rimmed glasses suddenly emerged. Kakashi and Might Guy looked at each other and saw the suspicion in each other's eyes. Obviously, both of them felt a little unfamiliar with the somewhat unknown gray-haired boy in front of them. It was Senju Naoki, and he recognized the identity of the gray-haired boy at a glance. Yukushi Kabuto. Senju Naoki was surprised. As a Sannin family member, Senju Naoki still knows something about Yukushi Kabuto, Orochimaru's disciple. However, in Naoki's impression, Yukushi Kabuto has never had a significant presence in the village. So far, Yukushi seems to be more than just a genin. Brother Naoki. What a coincidence. Yukushi Kabuto was surprised at first when he saw the three people in front of him, and then he quickly reacted and greeted Senju Naoki with an embarrassed look on his face. Quote. Looking at the three people with strange expressions in front of him, Yukushi Kabuto felt guilty and was about to explain something. No need to say more. I know, you're here to poop too. 217. Senju Naoki directly interrupted Yukushi Kabuto's words and spoke first. Yukushi Kabuto. After a while, Uchiha Itachi came to the forest outside the village, as usual. Basically every time, Uchiha Itachi arrives on time as if he were on time. He arrived later than the others. When Uchiha Itachi arrived, the scene in front of him made his eyes flash with color. I saw four people, Senju Naoki, Hitaki Kakashi, Might Guy and Yukushi Kabuto, taking separate sides and falling into a complicated state at the same time. At that moment, the surprise in Itachi's eyes flashed away. But soon, he had roughly guessed the result. These people in front of him should be the same as him, and they are all people who have received the treatment of cheap daddy and tutor. Although Itachi was a little surprised by this, thanks to his calm character, he was not too surprised. Although among the five, Uchiha Itachi is the oldest. However, the accidents in his childhood and the daily interactions with Ayako have exerted a subtle influence on her. This makes Uchiha Itachi's character more calm than the other four. Itachi vaguely guessed that all this was probably not a coincidence. For several people to gather here, it must be that Uchiha Fusuke has some important arrangements tonight. Thinking of this, Uchiha Itachi also silently approached the four of them, found a big tree and leaned against it, closing his eyes and remaining silent. Looking at Uchiha Itachi who appeared in front of them, a hint of complexity flashed in the eyes of the four people again. 19. Here comes another one. The four of them thought secretly in their hearts at the same time. However, due to the previous, successive scares, several people behaved much more normally. Since they can be listed on the seed list by Fusuke, they are naturally not ignorant people. Several people have roughly guessed that the identities of the other four people in front of them are roughly the same as them. But whenever they recalled the scene when they first came to this forest to receive instruction, their moods were still somewhat complicated. That day, Fang looked at the seated player in front of him with a serious face and was lecturing him eloquently. Naoki, Kakashi, Kabuto, Guy, Itachi, do you know why I need to take extra care of you? Hearing this, all the seated players except Uchiha Itachi looked at a loss. Not sure. X4. The four Naoki shook their heads and said in confusion. Of course the four of them didn't understand why the dignified Third Hokage was particularly interested in them. Of course it's because I'm very optimistic about you. Naoki, Kakashi, Kabuto, Guy, Itachi. Uchiha Fusuke still fooled a few people with a straight face. I heard the top leader of the village say this. Several young Konoha seeds were suddenly fooled into confusion. It's like a college student who just started working. After being deceived by the boss and given a few bad checks, I thought it was the boss's fancy, and started to get involved desperately. Little did I know, if you don't work hard to get involved, how will your boss get a big job at the end of the year? This, encouragement, from Uchiha Fusuke. The original intention is just to stimulate the rapid growth of a few people. But unexpectedly, Fusuke's behavior did create an inexplicable association among several people. Hokage's recognition and secret teaching. This undoubtedly illustrates one thing. Am I really special? Except for Uchiha Itachi, the other four people couldn't help but have this idea in their minds. And next, Uchiha Fusuke's teaching without sparing any effort made several people have an idea in their minds. That is, am I the protagonist? X4. Advertisement. Ever since, in the minds of a few people, an idea came up again. As the protagonist, cheat is of course a must. Uchiha Fusuke has become the kind of grandpa in the ring, in the hearts of many people. As time went by, Several people felt more and more in their hearts that they were Konoha's sons of destiny. Until today, when several people discovered that the grandpa cheat they were so proud of was actually not unique to them. Of course, a few people's hearts are inevitably a little complicated. And compare a few people. Uchiha Itachi is calm on the surface. But what he saw was actually more. He didn't think that Fang, who had a lazy personality, would do anything useless and superfluous. Fusuke is willing to take the time to train a few people. It shows that several people do have different meanings to Fusuke and even the village. Based on the current situation in the village, Itachi roughly guessed. Perhaps Uchiha Fusuke has the intention of cultivating a successor. After spending many years with and observing Fusuke, Uchiha Itachi also already knew Fusuke's character. Although his cheap daddy is not a good person at all. But Fusuke can be considered extremely tolerant in his dealings with others. This also made Itachi understand that Uchiha Makoto didn't have to die. All because of Uchiha Fugaku's ignorance and arbitrary misjudgment. Not only did he end up dying, but he also lost Uchiha Makoto's life in vain. Both parents died. He wouldn't have dared to imagine it if Uchiha Itachi hadn't chosen Ayako as his adopted mother, by chance. How can a 6-year-old boy survive in the village with Sasuke? To know. During the time when Uchiha Kagami and Fugaku had just started the rebellion. Uchiha Fugaku and Uchiha Kagami are two names that everyone is shouting about. Even within the Uchiha clan, no one dared to adopt Itachi and Sasuke despite this pressure. As the posthumous son of Fugaku, it is easy to imagine the fate of Itachi and Sasuke if it were not for the protection of Fusuke and Ayako. The changes he experienced when he was young made Itachi accustomed to his character of thinking more and making decisions before making decisions. At the same time, as we age, Itachi's gratitude towards Ayako and Fusuke became even deeper. As for Fugaku, not only would Itachi not pity him, he wouldn't even hate him. Stupid coup, stupidity that killed Uchiha Makoto. Whether it is for the village, the ethnic group or the family. Uchiha Fugaku is a well-deserved sinner. What's more? In the end, it was Itachi himself who killed Uchiha Fugaku. So in Itachi's heart, he had already let go of his past. At the moment, after guessing that Fusuke, regardless of past grudges, he was included in the consideration range of Hokage. Uchiha Itachi was both excited and moved. This moment. Originally, Itachi and Fusuke had an unspeakable, father-son, relationship. There seemed to be some subtle changes. Secretly. Why? Sure enough, I am still too young, I have not been exposed to any storms, and my character still needs to be tempered. Observing the expressions on the faces of several young men, Fusuke sighed slightly. Obviously, tonight's cheat gang drama was deliberately arranged by him. Fusuke also hid in the dark early in the morning, silently observing the performance of several seated players. Although the performances of several people are full of comedy. But except for Uchiha Itachi, Fang Bu was not satisfied with the performance of the others at all. Especially when he thought of the ridiculous reasons of several people, Fusuke felt a little dumbfounded for a moment. Certainly, this may also have something to do with Fusuke's own high expectations. After all, it's not just anyone. They can all judge the current situation in a timely manner with limited information, and quickly accept the gap in reality. This can be regarded as a small test, conducted by Fusuke on several people. In this trivial test, full marks to Uchiha Itachi. Hitaki Kakashi and Senju Naoki each scored 50 points. Might Guy's 10 points. Yakushi Kabuto, 0 points. Might Guy's score is purely a love score, given by Fang. As for Yakushi Kabuto, Fusuke looked at the guy who was scratching his head and giggling, feeling a sense of powerlessness in his heart. The next second, Fang used the flying thunder god from the dark to flash into the middle of several people. Whoa, with the appearance of Fusuke, the 5 people have different expressions. Fusuke brother, 27. Wind, sir, Lord Hokage. Master, advertisement. Senju Naoki and the other 4 people all greeted Fang with complicated expressions. Only until the end, Uchiha Itachi didn't speak for a long time, his heart was full of struggle at this time. Uncle Fusuke. But in the end, Itachi still couldn't say those 2 words, and just whispered the usual names. He seemed to sense something was wrong with Itachi's mood. Fusuke just glanced at Itachi briefly, then gave him a gentle smile. I called you here today. I have something to tell you. You have to take this seriously. Fusuke didn't give the 5 people much time to accept, but went straight to the topic with a solemn expression. I've been teaching you for almost 5 years. As the saying goes, raise an army for 1,000 days and use it for a moment. The time has come for me to test your mettle. Now that the situation in the ninja world is turbulent, Sono Yinli developed an invitation to the Chunin examination. Fusuke glanced at the 5 people in front of him and took out his own Hokage aura. Faced with this huge pressure, several people felt their throats tighten. This matter is no small matter. Now, I have decided to take 2 of you to participate. Jonin for 1, Genin for 1. So I decided to let you use a competition method to determine the quota. Fusuke continued. His words also gave the 5 people in front of him a sense of urgency. Even a fool can see it. Fusuke specially called a few people here tonight in order to test them. No matter what, they must obtain one of the 2 places, even if it is just to avoid disappointing Fusuke. The rules are simple. I have 2 bells in my hand. No matter what method I use, whoever gets the spot first will get it. Fusuke said as he took out 2 bells from his hands. After saying that, a strange color flashed in Gangji's eyes. No killing blows allowed. You have 5 minutes to prepare. The area is limited to this forest and I won't leave. You prepare yourselves. As the words fell, Fusuke's figure also disappeared. Hear the sound. A hint of alarm flashed in each of the 5 people's eyes. They looked at each other warily at the same time. Especially Senju Nawaki, Hitaki Kakashi, and Might Guy. The 3 of them were all Jonin, so they couldn't help but feel a sense of competition in their hearts. At that moment, the 3 of them left separately. Later, Uchiha Itachi and Yakushi Kabuto met each other and saw the deep look in each other's eyes. Uncle Itachi, how about we discuss it? Just let me forget it. Yakushi Kabuto said with a smile, a flash of light flashing in his round glasses. Although Yakushi Kabuto is older than Itachi, but helplessly, seniority is here. He also 3.6 can only call Itachi, Uncle Master. Yakushi Kabuto seems to want to use language to directly negotiate with Itachi and make Itachi abstain directly. But Itachi knew that Yakushi Kabuto was probably reminding him. Hearing the sound, Itachi said nothing. He just took a deep look at Yakushi Kabuto on the other side, as if he wanted to see his innermost thoughts through Kabuto's pair of flat-rimmed glasses. Why? Uchiha Itachi asked slowly, the 3 Magatama in his eyes turning slightly. Why? I knew I couldn't hide it from Uncle Itachi. Yakushi Kabuto shook his head helplessly, and a bright color flashed on his plain glasses again. Looking at Itachi's pair of deep 3-tomo Sharingan, he knew that Itachi had seen through some of his little thoughts. But Yakushi Kabuto didn't care at all. That's all. So be it. After saying that, Yakushi Kabuto turned around helplessly and plunged into the jungle. Looking at Yakushi Kabuto's back, Itachi remained standing there, silent. Just now, Fusuke's rules only stated, no dead blows. But he didn't say, no hands allowed. When there are only 2 people in the quota, Itachi can also directly exclude Yakushi Kabuto by fighting. But he didn't do this. Thinking of this, Itachi looked at the direction where Senju Nawaki and the others left just now, with a thoughtful look in his eyes. After some identification, Uchiha Itachi started to chase one of them directly. Secretly, Kabuto this brat. Watching the interaction between Yakushi Kabuto and Uchiha Itachi, Fang couldn't help but curse inwardly. Almost instantly, he could see Kabuto's thoughts. Soon, a trace of helplessness flashed in his eyes. After all, everyone has his or her own ambitions. This thing cannot be forced. In fact, this seed training list, listed by Fusuke. It doesn't necessarily mean that everyone here must be a Hokage. Chapter 99, Snapshot Fusuke, it's time to hand in your homework. Advertisement. Fusuke's training is more from the perspective of cherishing talents, to avoid wasting the excellent talents of a few people. Like Might Guy, obviously, with his mind, it is really difficult for him to be a Hokage. He also appears on this list, which is enough to explain the problem. Think of this. Fusuke no longer hesitated, he just put his hands together and summoned a clone. Wood style. Wood clone. Wood clone is not a low-end product, like Shadow Clone. This wood clone has about 30% of the strength of Fusuke's body. After summoning the wood clone, Fusuke threw the 2 bells in his hand to the wood clone. Afterwards, he hid and watched the show silently. As for taking action, of course it is impossible to take action. He is a dignified third Hokage, the man who beat Uchiha Madara and ran away with his head in his arms. What's the point of bullying a few juniors yourself? Thinking of this, Uchiha Fusuke rubbed his waist slightly, a look of fatigue flashed across his face. The goblins at home are becoming increasingly difficult to deal with. Especially that little fairy Ayako. I really can't understand where so many weird things come from. When he thought of the fluffy fox tail on Ayako's plump part, Fusuke's heart flashed with passion. In 2 days it's time to leave for Miss Shinobi. He really should spend time with his lovely wives at home. That means it's time to hand in your homework properly. This way, Senju Nawaki after leaving several people. While he was on guard against possible sneak attacks at any time, he was tracking Uchiha's traces in the forest with a serious look on his face. There are only 2 bells, and there is only one qualifying spot. No matter how you look at it, the best solution is to find Fusuke first. And grab the bell from his body, gain the opportunity to get the results, and end it all. After searching to no avail, Senju Nawaki simply sat cross-legged on the ground and closed his eyes tightly. Whoa! At that moment, traces of Hidolomi appeared on both sides of Nawaki's cheeks. As Nawaki opened his eyes again, the color of his eyeballs also changed to a light 12 gold color. Yes, this is exactly the first stage of Sage Mode. After activating the first stage of Sage Mode, Senju Nawaki's perception is greatly enhanced. For a time, all the disturbances in a radius of hundreds of meters were hidden from his perception. At that moment, he suddenly turned around and looked in one direction. Because in his perception, there was a target approaching him quickly. Aha! At that moment, a boy with a uonfan pattern printed on his clothes came into Nawaki's eyes. Because of the change in fate, Itachi in this life does not bear the same pressure as in the original work. Under the protection of Fusuke and Ayako, Itachi didn't put too much energy on missions, he only performed tasks occasionally. He spends most of his time practicing quietly under Fusuke's guidance, steadily improving his strength. Therefore, today's Uchiha Itachi's ninja level is still Genin. But ninja level does not represent strength. Who doesn't know in future generations that Konoha Genin is the strongest existence in the ninja world? The shadow of a famous tree. Although Uchiha Itachi's reputation in the village is not known because of his low profile. But just relying on the identity of Fusuke's adopted son can show that Itachi is not simple. Therefore, Senju Naoki did not take it lightly just because the Itachi in front of him was just Genin. Uchiha Fusuke just finished saying, "You are not allowed to fight each other." The back-footed ferret followed him and caught up with him. It was hard not to make Senju Naoki think too much. But why me? Does he think I'm the best to deal with? Thinking of this, Senju Naoki narrowed his eyes slightly, with a hint of awe in his eyes. As the heir to the Senju clan, Naoki has never been a shy person. Just when Senju Naoki was wary of Itachi's attack. "President Naoki, can I call you that?" Uchiha Itachi took the initiative to speak. Certainly, Senju Naoki's expression did not change and he just nodded lightly. With the relationship of Fusuke's adopted son, even if he and Itachi were not familiar with each other before, it would be okay to call each other by their first names. "I'm not here to fight you. Are you interested in collaborating?" "There is actually no conflict of interest between us." Itachi spoke to Naoki on the other side with a sincere expression, clarifying his purpose in one sentence. Hearing the sound, Senju Naoki's eyes flashed with gleam. Previously, Naoki just wants to compete with Might Guy and Kakashi. He actually ignored a very crucial piece of information in the assessment given by Fusuke. There are 2 bells, but the final quota is 1 Jonin and 1 Genin. Among the 5, Kakashi, Might Guy and Senju Naoki are all Jonin. Advertisement. This undoubtedly indicates a competitive relationship between the 3. On the other side, the same goes for Itachi and Yakushi Kabuto, who are Genin. And this shows, in fact, there is essentially no conflict of interest between Jonin and Genin. In other words, they can completely form a team in pairs to compete for the final spot. So now Uchiha Itachi takes the initiative to find Senju Naoki, not only because he thinks Senju Naoki is a soft persimmon. Rather, it was because Itachi felt that among the 3 Jonin, Naoki was the hardest to pinch. That's why he took the initiative to come to Naoki to form a team. After Itachi's instruction, Naoki can also be regarded as a little bit revealing. So he understood it instantly. Good. Without much hesitation, Senju Naoki directly agreed to Itachi's request to form a team. Seeing this, a subtle smile flashed across Itachi's face, which was always calm beyond his years. Open black lens bracket. In the heart of Uchiha Itachi. Their first team has basically locked in the victory in advance. Because this is the combination of Senju plus Uchiha. In the darkness, Uchiha Fusuke stared at Itachi, who took the initiative to seek Naoki to form a team, with a hint of joy in his eyes. The other side, Yakushi Kabuto, who was whistling and strolling leisurely in the forest, also found Kakashi. The situation is basically similar to that of Uchiha Itachi. He ran just after a few words and a brief exchange with Kakashi. He and Kakashi formed the Kaka-Kabuto combination. After completing the team formation, Yakushi Kabuto glanced at Kakashi in front of him calmly, with an apology flashing in his eyes. At the same time, under Fusuke's initiative, Wood Clone also took the initiative to expose its location in the forest. Otherwise, even if it is only 30% of Fusuke's strength, this Wood Clone wanted to hide, and it was impossible for Naoki and others to find it. Wood Clone has just revealed its figure. I don't know if it was luck or misfortune, but I bumped into Might Guy directly. Ha 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 ha, Master Fusuke, let me show you the current training results of my Konoha Blue Beast. Might Guy laughed and stared at the bell in Wood Clone's hand with bright eyes. Secretly, Fusuke looked at Guy, who had been excluded and isolated, with a flash of helplessness in his heart. Obviously, once it comes to a battle of wits, there is basically no need to fight. Might Guy is definitely the one at the bottom. For Might Guy, who has been full of headwinds, but still doesn't know it at all. At this moment, all he could see was the bell in Wood Clone's hand. 6th gate, Shaman, open. With a loud roar, Might Guy's skin instantly turned red, and a large amount of chakra spurted out from his pores. Might Guy didn't hold anything back at all, and everything happened as soon as he made a move. He directly crossed the former 5th gate of the 8 inner gates, and drove to the 6th gate. You can skip the previous 5th gate and directly open the 6th gate. This undoubtedly also shows that young Guy has practiced 8 inner gates to a level no less than that of the later period of the original work. Towards the peacock. Then, Might Guy jumped up high and waved his limbs in the air at a speed that was invisible to the naked eye. At that moment, groups of explosive fireballs were overwhelmingly attacking the Wood Clone on the ground. Facing Might Guy's massive attack, Wood Clone still stood there calmly. He watched as the overwhelming fireball was about to bombard him. Wood Clone just raised his feet and took a slight step. Whoa! The next second, countless afterimages appeared on the ground. Boom boom boom. At this moment, no matter how hard Might Guy tried, all his peacocks hit empty space. At the same time, the movement here also attracted 2 groups, the Kaka-Kabuto combination, and the 6 paths combination, Senju plus Uchiha equals 6 paths. Seeing this scene in front of them, several people couldn't help but exclaimed. So fast. The body flicker technique, used by the wind to dodge Might Guy's attacks, is the most ordinary of the 3 body techniques. Body flicker technique, basically a must-have skill for every jonin. But the more popular this ability is, the more difficult it is to study it to the extreme. It is said to be blinking, but it can actually be understood as a technique of high-speed movement. But the same body flicker technique. Most ninjas in the ninja world, including many cage level experts, cannot use the body flicker technique continuously. Because using the body flicker technique will put a huge load on the body. Shisui is the best example. The reason why Uchiha Shisui has this title is precisely because the body flicker technique he performs is not only extremely fast, but also can be performed continuously. And now, in front of everyone, Wood Clone really showed off what Fusuke is. Seeing Fusuke using the body flicker technique dozens of times without any trouble, Might Guy, who kept releasing the peacock, couldn't hold on anymore. Whoosh! He stopped releasing the peacock, but fell to the ground, and flew straight into the wind with explosive power even though his eyes were wide. Obviously, Might Guy wants to use his best physical skills to gain an advantage. Facing Might Guy's direct attack, Wood Clone did not continue to try to dodge with the body flicker technique, but rushed forward. Advertisement. Boom. Along with a dull impact, the two fists collided directly. Under the huge force, a violent flow of air erupted directly where the two fists came into contact. And this is just the beginning. The next moment, Might Guy is invisible to the naked eye. The speed scene continued to bombard Fusuke. Fists, elbows, knees, toes. All parts of the body turned into weapons for Might Guy's attack at this moment. Bang bang bang. For a time, the dense and dull impact sound made people feel their eardrums numb. Looking at Uchiha Fusuke, who still looked relaxed in front of him, Might Guy's pupils shrank slightly. The more he fought, the more frightened he became. As Fusuke's apprentice, Might Guy knows that Fusuke's 8 inner gates attainments are still above his. But at this moment, it's just about physical skills. Fusuke, who has not yet opened the 8 inner gates, is already fighting neck and neck with him who has opened the gate. How can Might Guy not be frightened by this? Not just Might Guy. The 4 people watching the battle on the other side also showed horrified expressions after seeing this scene. How come? Senju Nawaki was shocked. The strength of Might Guy is still clear. Both are jonin, and the two have briefly collaborated on several missions. This was the first time he saw anyone other than members of the Senju clan. Someone can fight like this with Might Guy, a pure taijutsu type ninja who opened the 8 inner gates. As a Senju of the forest, who is a Sengoku wealthy family that can be compared with Uchiha. Senju's bloodline ability is of course not just wood style. After all, the conditions for opening wood style are too harsh. If only wood style had been used, the Senju clan would have become extinct long ago. In fact, most Senju people have talents such as strange strength and quick recovery. This is the ability that Tsunade showed in the original work. This talent makes the Senju people naturally skilled in physical arts. Again, Uchiha has a strong wind. But how strong is he? Most people in Konoha still have no idea. Even in the hearts of these Konoha seeds, who receive Fusuke's teachings every day. They probably just think that Fusuke, who is from the 3rd generation project, is stronger than Minato, who is from the 4th generation project. But how much stronger it is, they can't say for sure. At the moment, when I saw Uchiha who was playing with his eyes, he actually displayed such a level of taijutsu. This made a few people with a little knowledge feel a little unbelievable. Not to mention the shock of the 4 people. In fact, Might Guy, who was fighting Fusuke, was even more shocked. His offensive seemed fierce and fierce. But the purpose is to put it bluntly, it is for the bell hanging on Wood Clone's waist. Therefore, every move he made was aimed at grabbing the bell. But every time Might Guy stretched out his hand, it would either be dodged by Wood Clone just right, or his hand would be slapped away. Looking at the Wood Clone that can be retracted and retracted freely, this undoubtedly shows that the Fusuke in front of it has not yet used its full strength. 7th gate, Hurt Gate, open. At that moment, Might Guy no longer hesitated and shouted again. The veins on his forehead also popped out completely, and blue air flowed crazily from his pores. As Might Guy opened the 7th gate, Wood Clone stopped fighting with Might Guy and continued to fight in close combat. Instead, use Flying Thunder God to directly distance yourself. But unexpectedly, after seeing Wood Clone distance himself, Might Guy was not surprised but overjoyed. Because this move of his requires just enough time to prepare. At this moment, Might Guy put his hands together on his chest. The movements seemed a little weird, and they didn't seem like simple seals. This guy, I'm afraid I have to use Day Tiger. Kakashi, who was watching the battle in the dark, said with emotion to Yakushi Kabuto beside him. As a close friend of Might Guy, Kakashi is very familiar with Might Guy's 3 axes. Hearing the sound, Yakushi Kabuto beside Kakashi also nodded in agreement. 8 inner gates, although he doesn't know how. But in Orochimaru's research, he also came into contact with this stuff. In the past, Orochimaru also studied how to popularize this thing. After a final study, he dropped it. At the same time, Might Guy is also completely ready to go. 8 inner gates secret. Day Tiger, accompanied by an exclamation. A tiger composed of violent air currents bites towards Wood Clone. Upon seeing this, Wood Clone's eyes flashed with a look of deep concern. He stood there with his hands clasped together, and also started to form the seals. From a distance, watch the wind seal movements. As a Konoha technician, Kakashi has already analyzed the ninjutsu that Fusuke will perform next. At that moment, Kakashi's eyes flashed with shock. Advertisement. 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 Advertisement.